we're good to go. All right. What is up? Hi, Pook.
I don't know if I can like.
I haven't seen you.
Like,
seen you in so long.
It's been
at least like
a day.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I like the intro music, but I don't know if I can get down to it the same way I can get down to the loading screen.
You know you can do that. Anybody can.
Hell. Ooh. We've got some scrub ponies or some ponies.
We got some ponies. We got some scrubs. We got some nerds.
My mic is low. I can actually adjust that on my end again.
Yeah. We did some sound testing and then it fucked us apparently.
Yeah. You. That's about as high as it goes now.
Ooh. So, yeah, that's about right. Looks good.
Spicy. Oh.
Hi, Laurel.
Special guest star, Laurel.
Special guest star, Laurel Creeper in the background.
Well, hi, Flame. Hello, everybody.
Whoa, Flame 9. Wow, that's a name. I haven't seen that in forever. All right, so today is we've been fucking waiting for this shit for like months. Holy crap.
We've literally been working on it for months. I'm looking at the date that this document opened it up on.
Oh my god! Don't even talk to me about that. Like, don't even. All right, just stop.
Collaborate and wait. That's actually what today is about.
It is actually. You can see right.
I don't know which direction.
Yeah, there you go. That's the nerd logo. Check this is the nerd.
Okay.
Alright. Ready, and 3, 2, 1. Topic. Alright.
And scene.
And scene cut. Alright, so this is nerd. This is narcoleptic equines rarely derp.
Yeah.
And today we will be talking about collaborative storytelling, the aspect of role-playing wherein you collaboratively tell stories. And, yeah, good talk.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great talk.
All right,
great.
We'll see you guys next time.
Good talk. See you next time. That's it.
All right, legit. We're gonna. Do we even decide if this is gonna be weekly or bi-weekly?
I think it was gonna be as often as we can do it.
All right, so you want to shoot for like a bi-weekly to start and.
Yeah, I like things. I like buy things.
Like I also like buy things.
Because sometimes 2 is better than 1.
It is. No, it's definitely. Okay, so today we're gonna be talking about a whole lot of shit about story. And I want to go ahead and say before we get rolling that this is not we're not like going out and saying there's only one way to play, and we're not attempting to paint a picture where other things that you can get from the table are not as fun or as important. We're just happy to be talking and focusing on story for this evening.
Which means we would like to also hear your guys' input on this sort of thing.
He would like. I don't give a shit what you think.
Yeah, it's just he's an elitist prick, and
True.
I agree.
I am only all right with the most advanced of pricks. It's true. This, for the record, is why we're never gonna get the I don't know why we bother even writing an outline for the episode. We just sit here and make dick jokes all day.
Just dick jokes. That's actually what role playing is. This is just a series of ways to bring dick jokes.
Never-ending, repeated dick jokes. That's what.
There you
go. That's what nerd stands for. All right.
Naughty elves read diaries. What? We don't even know what the show's called anymore.
We don't know. It stands for something, and that's all you need to know. Okay.
Thank you, Flame. I like my hair. It's very
all right, so before we get going into talking what today's episode is going to be about, I want to establish what the fuck is meant by the word story. It seems a pretty important thing to at least come to like an agreement on, right? For the sake of the discussion here, I'd say a story is a character encountering and resolving a conflict, and I want to differentiate. I want to differentiate story from plot, and figure out why those two things are different before we even launch anything else. So interject here with examples or whatever as like just smack me and tell me to shut up when you want to talk, basically. Right.
I don't know what story is.
I don't know. All right. So a conflict is made of two parts. What you want and why you can't have it. This establishes a motivation. It establishes a reason for you to be doing something. It gives a momentum, a cause. It's the fuel that the story burns on. It's the conflict. It's it's what you want to find out what happens next because they haven't resolved the conflict yet. The story isn't over until the conflict is resolved. And the whole point of the story is for somebody to win, with the exception of tragedies, which are tragic.
People dying.
People die. People lose. They fail to resolve their conflicts. But the idea is Pook over here wants a drink because he's really thirsty. But the only bottle of water in his vicinity is on the other side of a wall, and that is his conflict. And the story is about Pookajutsu learning to climb. I have a pencil. I don't know where that came from.
All right.
The story is about Pookajutsu learning to climb to get over the wall, and then the story is over when he gets the water because that's the end of the interesting stuff.
And so
it's
so
important.
My conflict is thirst.
And like this is important to know because like as a DM or a GM or an ST or a referee or whatever fancy word the latest game has come up with.
A lot of terms for that thing.
Yeah, I just go with Game Master because it seems generic enough, right?
Makes you sound like you're in charge.
Yeah, I like being authoritative.
Assert your dominance.
Assert your dominance with a GM combo. Let that one.
We're just gonna have that awkward silence where we just stare at the end of everything. But okay.
All right.
So
but the idea being that I forgot what I was saying.
We were talking about me trying to get over the wall.
Over the wall in the water, right? So like the idea is the story is when you're designing an adventure, you want the PCs to win. Like you want the PCs to come through and save the day. But you have to know that once the PCs do save the day, all right, story's over. The adventure is done. Once they kill the bad guy, once they rescue the princess, slay the dragon, loot the horde, whatever, that's the end of the story, and you have to come up with a new story. You need a new conflict. You gonna help me out here, Pook?
No, I'm actually, you're on quite the roll there.
I'm on point!
I don't want to get like, because when I keep going off into like this mental tangent of like, but where's the fun in wanting to set up the story where people win?
All right, well, the fun in the PCs winning is it's the story getting to the point where they win.
Right.
Like it's all about the adventure, and the story is all about what happens between the beginning and the end, and the PCs winning is the end.
You want to get,
you want to get there.
But okay, so how does that vary from plot?
Plot is think of plot as the cliffhanger notes for the story. All right.
It is
the story is about the characters, the conflicts, and the series of events between. Plot is your sense of progress from A to B. The plot is the specific nodes of events that chain the story together. Like
the framework you set to work within.
Yeah. Plot is if a story is a building, plot is the blueprint.
Okay.
Okay. But you can have a shitty story with a great plot. You can have a shitty plot with a great story.
Fantastic Four. Yeah. Because I think this is like it's a little bit of a terminology that gets thrown around a lot, where I see sometimes in role-playing communities where they're like, I'm running a plot. When the plot should be like the entirety of the thing, and you are running a story.
Yeah, you're running a story, and the story is running on a plot.
Right.
Yeah, you have a plot for your story, but you don't run a plot.
Right. The plot are your tracks.
Yeah.
Of land. No.
All right. So now that we've established what we mean when we say plot or story,
right.
For the purposes of this discussion, we can move on to what we're talking about today is telling a story collaboratively, and because Pook and I, like we're both players, we have a really story-centric style of role-playing.
Yes.
Very much like we could just ditch the rules and just sit and go.
And we often have.
And we often, in fact, there have been a great many purse thieves that were resolved without rules.
Yeah, and then sometimes we actually invent new rules. Like we actually are like, let's make rules, and then sometimes it turns out good, and sometimes we're like,
yep. But
we trust each other enough to not use the rules.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So the narrative style play that Pook and I are going to be talking about here is a style of role playing where the entire point is the story, and everything takes a backseat to the story. If the rules are in the way, we ditch them. If the rules don't make sense, if what we want to happen in the story can't happen because of rules, fuck them.
I don't want to tell you guys how to play, but this is how it should be. If the game ever gets in the way of actually playing the game, it's not a game.
Yeah, if the game gets in the way of itself, there's a problem. Now, if you want to play by if what you want to do is pick out like the strategic options and win in an encounter, then you should do that, and the rules are supporting that. But if what you're after is, like, oh, that can't happen because on rule page just can't take one more than grab lag. Good example of this is on Fridays with Nerds and Dragons.
Okay.
Wanton Nerd is DMing our D&D 5th edition game. Yes. And for the purposes of the story, it made sense that my character as Paladin would interrogate this goblin to get us to the next thing. Like, I knew where we were going, he knew where we were going, we just needed the characters to know where we were going. And we ran into a problem. Thank you for the fault. We ran into a problem where one of the players was trying to kill the last goblin, and my character was trying to interrogate the goblin, and Wanton Nerd allowed me to grab the goblin and lay on hands. Which technically should have been a grapple action and a lay on hands action.
Right.
But because he decided that was actually better for the story, for us to just go and just get the thing over with, he was like, yeah, go ahead and do it. An example of that.
Where as someone, another style might actually, I want to come back and say that the key thing you need to do is agree on the kind of game you're playing before you play it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because if we start talking in one direction or another, it's going to make it sound like, no, there aren't such a thing. There aren't.
There aren't.
There aren't. There isn't such a game as a game where somebody really wants you to meticulously roll out each and every action you take.
Right.
Some people get their kicks that way.
Yeah, some people really
freaks.
Like, no, like there are games where like freedom of choice is paramount, and the idea is to what if, to see how your decisions play out in the game world, and then there are games where the point is to stack your stats and kick in the door, get the loot, kill the bad guy, and then there are games that are all about the story.
Right, and so I actually like when moments like in the D&D game where D&D itself is a very structured system.
Yep.
Like D&D can give you the die rolling juiciness you really want if that's what you want from it. But I really like when that just derails and someone's like, "No, do it because you're telling the good story."
Yeah.
Or "No, do it because there's some character development here." Or I really like that the creative response you came up with. You're gonna lay on hands your interrogation subject.
Yeah, my goblin, because he was gonna die if I didn't. Dead goblins tell no tales.
Yes. Well, yes.
All right. So now that we've established that what we're actually discussing is a narrative and a story-centric style of play, and that we aren't silently excluding all other possibilities. And it's ridiculous that we need to fucking put that out there, like, disclaimer, you're not doing it wrong, we're just talking about the way we do it.
You're doing it wrong.
Okay, so if I describe the game to you, Pook, as story focused, character driven, and improv heavy, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so it means that I actually think that it means that I've seen a player base that actually has some kind of trust. I'll come back to the trust, because it's these systems are usually in place to keep things fair between people, and then they're latched onto because either it gives an advantage or it prevents somebody else from taking an advantage, which gets in the way of this story driven. Okay, now I'm making it sound like they're mutually exclusive, and they're not.
Okay, so if you were to ask me what it means to say a game is story driven, it means it would mean to me that the entire purpose of the game, like the end goal, was to create a cool story.
Right. Then the reason I came back to that trust thing is because I'm like, I have these hangups where I'm like, I say to somebody, I want a story driven game, and it usually means that I want to put that stuff aside.
Yep.
That all those little stats and everything aside, and just start telling a story. And I want you to be able to tell that story back to me without feeling like we have to go pull out like 4 or 5 books to decide whether or not we can move forward with it.
Right. You don't want it to become you don't want it, like when you tell somebody you're looking for a story driven game, you're looking for an experience that doesn't involve nitpicking whether or not something could happen.
Right. This is there are no subways here in this city.
Yeah.
There never be subways here in this city.
Yeah, so what Puka's referencing, I was playing an online game. It was written role playing, and we were, I don't even remember what city it was anymore. I just remember that, like I put my character on a subway. Right? I started the scene, it was gonna be a shootout in a subway. That's all. The subway wasn't even a big part. It was just there, right? It just happened to be my stage of choice. And this person went on a fucking rampage about how in the city that we were staging our fictional fairy versus werewolf shootout in, that subways did not exist.
Subways did not exist.
There was no subway in that city.
I understand that's a kind of pedantry that doesn't really, it's not typical, but it kind of for some reason lines up the same way that I see rules lawyering line up. Yep. Like when you're actually setting lawyering, Yeah.
Lawyering is instead of saying, hey, these guys are having fun running the scene or telling the story, you launch at it in an attempt to decide whether or not they've done it correctly, or
I'm gonna have to sign for something.
Pizza man. All right, so this is the part where I'll make fun of Pook because he can't hear us. Shh, don't tell them. Don't tell them you can hear us. You're ruining the fun. Don't look at me like that, mischievous bitch. I can see you sitting there laughing at me. All right.
Or it's gonna be taken care of. Awesome. Nice.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So when somebody tells you that the game is gonna be story focused, you envision that as being sans lawyering. Pizzas.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm stressed over this pizza, like this
it's
body
just like
language.
You're gonna have to see it or something to believe it exists. I'm sorry. I just had to make sure that I could. Okay, I'm back. So
you're saying a story driven to you means a lack of lawyering because it's okay if it doesn't make sense as long as it makes sense within the context of having fun with the story.
Yeah, because I think the lawyering comes in place more in like, are we playing a story driven game or are we playing a combat driven game? Is this a series of just dungeon delves for the loot? or is this where I'm going to get character development and those kind of interactions where am I going to spend more time rolling dice or talking to the person next to me?
Right. I personally find that those two things go hand in hand rather than being opposed.
Right,
and there's this really wide perception that they are opposed. In the sense,
and I'm unfortunately part of it because I'm biased and I'm
but like
open to learn.
Yeah, you've seen the way I tend to do things. Like I'll pitch an interesting situation, right, and then I'll use the dice to resolve it and find an interesting way to play off the dice.
It's just right outside the camera. There's a laurel like right there. Sorry.
Where I use the dice to help steer the story in unexpected directions or what have you. But ultimately speaking, I'm throwing the dice to find out what happens, not to... Like, the die rolling isn't what I'm gunning for.
Right, they're a tool.
Yeah, definitely. They're a tool to assist in making the story fun and unexpected.
I have a drink. Okay.
God, I'm so jealous.
All right, so I guess more of this would be, what do you think... Like, we've talked a little bit about what defines a story.
Yeah.
I've completely lost my train of thought here. I'm so sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to the next point of character-driven.
There we go.
Story-focused, character-driven, and improv-heavy. That's the style of play we're talking about here.
Okay, that's where I was going with that. Character-driven.
Character-driven. Oh, go ahead. You first. Take it.
As in, the center stage are the characters.
Right.
As in, characters are the things that move the story along.
Right. They're the vehicles for story.
They're the vehicles through their interactions. You might come into this with a story already in mind, but if you're character driven, they're gonna fuck it up.
Yep. A good example of a character-driven story would be I'll use Buffy, Supernatural, White Collar. These are shows where the story is about what the characters do and why they do it, and the things that the characters do cause situations that need to be reacted to. An example of a story that isn't character-driven would be Lord of the Rings. A lot of high fantasy,
right.
a lot of classic high fantasy stuff isn't character-driven because it's about characters reacting to stuff that will happen even if they are not causing it. In a character-driven story, the character's actions cause the story, as opposed to the story being happening and the characters reacting to it as they go along.
Yes. Okay.
You may start with something that causes your character to react, but then what your character does doesn't just resolve things for now, it moves everything forward. It'll take the conflict and it'll escalate the tension, or it'll cause a new conflict.
It'll knock a plane out of the sky.
Yes, with its face.
With its face.
Dio. I should have stopped and thought about how ridiculously laden our conversations here on this show are going to be with references to games we have played that the audience has no fucking clue.
Has no idea about, which is why I'm trying to I keep kind of like, you hear me making references to things, and I keep trying to steer away from it because I don't want this to be the 2-hour podcast of
war stories. Yeah,
of war stories.
We can have a war story podcast. Just get that shit out of our system at some point.
But so, how do you? Okay, knowing these three things when you're talking about story-driven character, story-focused, character-driven. Third thing you said,
improv.
Improv.
Yeah.
You have an example of that with Darkness Rising.
Yeah, Darkness Rising is actually, I think, a really good example of a show that is story-driven. Story focused, where people tune in to find out what happens next. The story that I'm running there is a mystery, which means that the plot is a progressive revelation of information that was missing beforehand. You don't know the whole picture until you get to the end. And it's character driven in the sense that, like, even though you don't know what's happening, say, in the surrounding world, like in the case of Darkness Rising with the Virtues, or like what strange facility they found themselves in this week or whatever. Even if you don't know what's going on there, the way that the characters are evolving and the way that the characters are reacting to each other and their relationships changing in response to what's going on, and the things that they're doing, like Tanya hugging Levi, or Jack desperately trying to cross over into the Leaflings world to save Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that story is really about, even if you don't know everything, even if the characters don't have all the information about what's going on around them.
I think a good example of something like that is when you have a very good example of that kind of story focused game is when somebody asks you, what is the game about? And you don't say the game is about weird shit happening to 4 people in this city named blah. You don't start going into the setting and saying, and there's possibly werewolves and darkness and tentacles and everything we've come up with. It's well, this is a story about there was this character Tanya, and Tanya died, and like you actually go into the, and they went to the, like you actually run through a lot of the character events when you're describing it.
Yeah, the stuff the stuff the characters had, wanted, did, and lost.
That's right. It's like, yeah, you could get into this TV show right now. You probably won't miss a lot of the actual story from jumping into season 4, but you're going to miss a lot of the character interaction. You're going to have no idea who these people are.
Yep. The last thing is improv heavy. It's effectively the difference between, okay, so Pook, let's construct a scenario here, okay? Your character is a detective, and my character is a suspect. All right. Now, if we approach this scene and we, yes. All right. We approach the scene and we say, okay, so I'm gonna grill them and see whatever I can get out of them. Right. Okay. And then regardless of whether or not dice are rolled, right? Then the ST and the GM and the players would decide, okay, this, and this are revealed. That's not improv.
No.
That's it. Improv would be you directly asking me the questions across the table and me answering.
Where were you on the night of the 5th?
Asleep with your mother.
Well, okay. I mean, she does get around.
I'm just saying. All right.
And scene, and basically we decided that is actually a botched investigation roll. Where okay, improv is you actually get the chance to ask the questions and interact with each other, and the storyteller has to keep up with how the game has now changed because you don't know what this person's going to ask.
A really good example of how an improv heavy game can go in a completely different direction than a non-improv heavy game would be last week's session on Darkness Rising, which had some really intense roleplay with all of the party in a scenario where one party member was about ready to kill another party member because that party member had just done this horrific thing. And instead of just saying, hey, I do this thing, yeah, whatever, my character's not gonna like that. Like, it was so intense, I actually had to mute people to reel everything back in and steer the story forward again. Because the players just got so into their characters' heads and they were, discussing it and talking through it and playing it out, and there was real tangible tension in the air.
To me, that's a beautiful thing. You ever walk away from a game table crying?
Yes. Twice now in the past 3 months.
Yeah. Let's see. Interesting enough, the different focuses of a story can swap out each other. Yeah, it's not like you actually end up sticking with one thing all the way through. But it's a vast difference between the storyteller has what information is available already planned out and is just determining how much of that is revealed based on a roll, or is deciding to say, screw that. If this person actually gives me good improv, then I'm going to improv back and maybe give them more or less, or come up with something I hadn't come up with before, or decide that, at the end of an episode of our series, somebody's going to go jumping into another realm, and I'll decide next time what that realm is. I don't have any plans for it right now.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, if the game is story driven, I decide if a certain piece of information helps the story along, and in those cases, like, even if somebody fails a roll or what have you, I'll work that information in, because the whole point is to tell the story. Right? And missing out key pieces of the story makes the story feel less complete. So now that we know what the style of play that we're talking about, where it's story focused, character driven, and improv heavy, we can go on about what the narrative play style isn't.
Yes.
And also, in turn, how these things can be worked into a narrative game. So the four things I've got listed here, I'm so glad I wrote this shit down.
Yeah, because
so they're so useful, right? The four things that narrative gaming isn't. It's not rules crunchy. It's not an exercise in agency and player free will. It's not railroady. And it's not about tactical action. However, that said, all four of those things can, probably should, and will be used in a story-driven, story-focused, character-driven, improv-heavy game. So I'm talking about tactical action. What I mean by that is like, a lot of players, they'll just boil that down to combat. Right?
Right. But you're talking about... You're talking about, like, initiatives, grids, plan out.
There's a lot more to that. You can have tactical play in social encounters. It doesn't have to be like, fighting. It can be any number of things. But tactical play typically revolves around resource management, decision making, and victory or loss based on decisions.
And how many pounds you're carrying in that bag of holding.
Yes. That isn't what the narrative style play focuses on. But the flip side to that is that can be extremely narrative if you treat it properly.
Yes.
As an example, my Sunday Mage game. One of our first really big combats. The characters were basically in the back room. They were being tried for treason, effectively. And the people that were framing the party, they had their timetable shifted and didn't have enough time to just let the party be found guilty anymore, so they tried to assassinate the party on the spot. This broke out in a big, huge combat scene, and I had the map and the grid and the whole 9 yards. And what wound up happening was Bill's character. Bill's character, in the first round of combat, no longer had a head because one of the enemies was set up as a sniper and got a decent roll. Ha! Goes Bill's character. Now, Bill's character is in a relationship with Chris's character. All right. Chris's character has the ability to rewind time. So Chris's character rewinds time and scream. But ever since then, Chris's character has forever carried that moment of watching her lover get her head blown off.
Yes.
Yes. And it forever changed the character. The character became a little more dark, a little more serious, a little more gritty. And it's something that literally didn't even happen because he rewound time and changed and changed the outcome of events. And that was a tactical decision. He had to spend his resources. There were costs to it. And it was the best decision he could make in that moment. And that fight was entirely tactical and rules heavy and all that nonsense. But it forever changed the way the character behaved because she had experienced this really horrible thing.
Which probably wouldn't have come up directly if you had just gone flat out freeform.
Yeah, if I had just like talked that out, we wouldn't nearly have had, like, Liz's head probably would have gone blown off, because what's the fun of being like, you die?
Right. Actually, if you'd have been like, you die, there'd have been a whole different discussion at the table, and it wouldn't have been a fun one.
Right, exactly.
But when the dice themselves come in and say, no, you die, then everybody's like,
oh, shit.
Oh, shook it,
holy shit. And then we decided how to play that out, what could be done about it, and that entire story arc Chris's character had nightmares. We had an entire adventure based around the fact that she was horrified of guns. Couldn't handle, like, the party's combat monkey could not handle being around guns anymore for a while.
Lovely.
It was pretty intense, and that only came about because of our inclusion of a tactical encounter in our story-based game. But the same, like, pretty much the same thing goes for being rules crunchy. Like, most, the narrative style of play that we're talking about isn't really concerned with the rules. It's concerned about, you know, the story. But again, just like if we hadn't tacticked that fight out, we wouldn't have had that story. A lot of story moments can be pulled out of rules-heavy stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I like to view the rules sometimes as an extra player at the table, completely unbiased extra player at the table. It's because it is that moment where, if it is brought in correctly, it is your random storytelling tool. It will give you feedback, whether or not you want that feedback, the moment you ask for it. It'll be like, we could go forward in this direction and then roll and then see the result you're not expecting. And immediately your mind goes places you would not have considered.
Yep.
Ever considered.
Totally. Like, I never would have considered just blowing Bill's character's head off.
Right.
Or the thought of it.
Yeah. But I do like to find a way to strike a balance between, okay, the dice told me something I'm not expecting. I'm not going to go check a chart to see what the dice say. I'm going to come up with something that might not necessarily fit here to begin with. The
fine art of fudging and educating.
Yes.
If you can't fudge and you can't educate, you're gonna have a rough time trying to play like this.
I think this is where the rules crunchy can come in or not come in.
Yep. Because like as a story focused character driven improv heavy game, the rules will oftentimes, there'll be these huge breaks where you're trying to figure out what the rules want to happen here, and because of that, like, you never ever break the flow. It's the one truly sacred rule of an improv heavy game.
Dirch actually has a good point there. He's actually right there on topic. Best GMs I've had will make a quick decision on a rule, whether it's right or not, and double check them before the next session to know for the future.
Yep.
One of the rules that's often at our tables, Grant has the rule, I've had it in games that I played as well. You don't discuss the rules during the game. We make the decision is made in the game is played. If you have rules issues, you bring them up after the fact. We come to the decision then.
Yep.
You continue to play. If the rules ever stop the flow of the game, the rules are your problem.
Yep.
Continue to play.
Yeah, totally. Like the rules should never get in the way of the game itself. Is the overarching, like, hyper simplified version of saying that. Yeah. The other thing, the narrative play style isn't focused on player agency. All right, now I'm gonna use two words here, and you're gonna make a face. All right,
here it
all
comes.
right, ready? Quantum ogre.
Yeah.
All right. So to explain, the concept of the quantum ogre is as follows. Let's say Pookajutsu, you're a player at my table, right? I'm describing you're walking down the road, and you come to a fork in the road. You can go left or you can go right. Which direction do you go?
Which way doesn't have the ogre? I'm sorry. I'm going to the right.
All right. When you go to the right, you find an ogre.
Yeah!
It's an ogre. All right. The idea is, no matter where he went, there was going to be an ogre, right? The concept of quantum comes in where the player is assuming that if they take the left, they'll find an ogre. If they take the right, they won't. But if the GM just puts the ogre in their path, it removes the point of the decision of the fork in the road.
The fork in the road. The GM's going to give you an ogre anyway.
Right.
La da 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 da. You're railroading me. Or maybe I just wanted you to have an ogre encounter. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Now, in a game where the focus is on player agency, free will, and just like sandboxing it, right? Like, just live as long as you can, go see how well you can do. That's the style of game. And I've played in games like that weren't exactly the most engaging thing for me personally, but it was great. I mean, it was still fun. Where the point is, if you make a dumb decision, you die. If you don't make a dumb decision, you don't die. And there's an ogre down that way, but not an ogre down that way. And that's where everything is, the world is preset, and the storyteller GM is just, running the player through it. Whereas in a narrative style of play, if the encounter with the ogre is necessary, say the ogre has, let's say the ogre is infected with some kind of magical curse that's contagious, and the story is supposed to revolve around the PCs ridding themselves of this contagious curse.
Then roads need to lead to ogre at some point.
Right, yeah, the road's got to lead to the ogre. The story won't start. And in that case, it's the narrative playstyle will sacrifice player agency. That said, the story-based style of play, because it is character-driven, does to some extent require some of that player agency.
A really slick game master / whatever we're going to call you these days will actually make it so the players never realize they didn't have a choice.
Yep.
I have to bring in this ogre. I'm still going to give you choices to make, but I'm going to still work the ogre in such a way that it makes you think you got to the ogre.
This rolls right up with how narrative play kind of has to be railroady, in the sense that what I do is I decide there will be an ogre. I do not decide how, when, or where you find the ogre. Instead, what I will do is I will decide not how it is you find the ogre. I let you decide how you find the ogre. I let you decide what you're gonna do, and you can do fucking anything you want, and I will totally work with you on what you've decided to do. And my goal as the storyteller is to find a way where naturally an ogre encounter might occur. Let's say that the most recent thing that's happening in your character's life is going to be a wedding. Let's say the ogre's going to attack the wedding. Ogres hate weddings. #
Ogres
2015.
hate ogres hate weddings.
Yeah,
fuck
for
the
real.
Wedding.
Where you decide. Let's say that the player character decides to have like a private wedding, and not like a big affair, and they tell nobody and they make it a secret. Now, my intention was for the ogre to attack the wedding. Obviously, the player character wants the wedding to be kept quiet, so I either maybe I'll take the story and decide that one of the very few people that was invited turns out to be a traitor
to the ogre.
Yeah, like a traitor who works with the ogre. Or I might decide, well, the ogre wedding would have been nice, but no go. So you go to the wedding, play out the wedding, and then that night you are incidentally in the path of somebody else's ogre, right? Like. Maybe the ogre will attack your honeymoon, or maybe the corpse of an ancient ogre will arise underneath your honeymoon hotel because it was built on an Indian burial ground. I don't know, right?
Ogre burial ground.
An ogre burial ground, yeah.
You will find the ogre, and I think some people would say that was railroady. I think it is necessary railroady, unless. If you want 100% free will and agency, then you have to accept that if you choose the path that doesn't have the ogre, you're going to fail the quest and the story will end.
Right, yeah. And
if you can't accept that, then you probably should be okay with having the ogre thrown at you.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, when you say railroading, I don't hear, like, there are players out there who will declare that, planning this kind of a story out is railroading. I don't think it is. I think it's railroading when you decide that the player character's actions
don't have consequence, like they don't actually have an impact.
They don't have an impact.
It's great that you did that. However, this ogre is still here.
Yeah. It should be, you should always take the player's actions into account because it is a character-driven play style. And if you're blowing the characters off to tell your story, that's railroading. But stuff happening beyond the character's control, like, your character doesn't get to decide if an ogre attacks their wedding.
No, but the character is, no, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into but I have 14 dice in ogre prevention.
Ogre prevention. Okay, so those are things that narrative gaming playstyle isn't, and now it can be, sometimes should be,
yes,
in all of those cases. So let's move on to talking about like what are the different kinds of collaborative storytelling games?
Fun ones. No,
The good ones and the ones that suck. End of show.
End of show. If you don't actually have a fun one, then we don't want to talk about it. No. That Dojo, that's a different thing. Like if it's an active decision to be like, we're going to avoid.
If we know the ogre is there,
yeah.
If you know the ogre is there and you decide to avoid it in character, that's entirely different than not knowing which road might lead to an ogre, making a choice and finding an ogre.
Yeah. If you're actually storytelling for characters that are flat out refusing to follow the story, then give them an even more fucked up story. Let them dig their grave. Let them do it. Who knows? You might get something fun out of it, or you might get a whole bunch of pissed off people at the table. But
hey,
yeah.
If Matt wants his character to kill the person, then
right. If Matt wants
if
Matt wants to kill somebody and then get one of his party members to almost kill him because he's doing atrocious things, and then he ends up dying. And well,
okay, so there's tabletop games done in a collaborative storytelling style where everybody is working together to tell a story. And so somebody in chat mentioned it's player plus player.
That was Laurel, player plus player, as opposed to player versus player.
Yep. And player versus player could be a riot. It could be downright fun. It happens on occasion, even in player plus player games. It happened yesterday during my Sunday Mage game, where and it wasn't even a big deal. Chris's character is an acanthist. They have fortune telling powers. They can see the future, only if they get their spell off. And Liz's character, Bill's character, Liz, Chris's character's girlfriend, same game here. Was just being a witty smug, picking on her friend's stuff. And in their pettiness, right? Liz was talking like leading up to something, and Chris's character jumps in and just says no. And Liz says, "You don't know what I was gonna say." And then Chris's character said, "Oh, but I can," and goes to tell the future about what Liz's character was gonna say. And then because we are now in this like nitpicky, goof off section where the characters are picking on each other, now suddenly we've got counter spells flying around and there's all this shit going down. The players are dicing out. It was legit PvP. It was a lot of fun.
But okay, so no, that's going to be off topic. I don't want to. This is not a topic about how do you handle soothsaying and fortune telling in your game.
No. We'll talk. You can have a fucking show about that shit. But so the concept of player plus player and player versus player, it's not that it is one and not the other. It's that it's primarily one as opposed to the other. Where like I actually want to have a chat with Pythagatron and Levi and say, okay, so how can the two of you work together to tell a really good story here? Because we have a scenario wherein Axel views Levi as an enemy because of actions Levi has taken. And that is a really volatile situation. And so in order to get the players on the same side of the table as opposed to each other while the characters are opposed to each other is what Laurel's talking about there. Okay, so we've talked this whole time about tabletop role-playing games.
Yes,
right.
Which are one of the.
Then there is the classic. There's the classic round the campfire storytelling game,
which needs to be brought back more. I need to see more of that.
All right. Ready? Let's have 4 turns. All right, 4 turns. No. Okay.
Is this?
I'll take turn 1. All right. The hut in the back of the woods wasn't frequently visited by many people, except for those who were truly desperate. Turn 1, your turn.
Because that's where all the hookers hung out.
The guy that was coming to the hooker hut in the back of the woods this week was no different than any other. Except there was somebody else in his head at the time.
Dojel.
And it was delightful. End of story. All right.
There you go. There's your story.
All right. So
I'm sorry. I talk about all this story stuff, and I'm happy to have this conversation. But I'm actually a systems and mechanic person, which is really weird because he's the improv guy, and I'm the how does this work?
But that's your around the campfire storytelling game where each person gets to say what happens next, and it goes around in a circle, right? And then it'll come back around. And there are a lot of these games that have there's a lot of them are also free on the net where you can find where the whole point of the system is just tell the story, and there aren't stats or mini dice, if any. Drama comes to mind. Actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
I was gonna bring that up. Yes,
it's a really good example of it. Okay, but then there's this is more your domain of expertise, Pook. I'll bow out to this one on you. I'll bow to you on this one. I can words.
Bow.
Boom. Online role playing versus like we're talking about like chat based or play by post, play by email.
We're taking a game, and let's say in the case of Dungeons and Dragons or World of Darkness, these games are written normally with the assumption that you're going to have one arbitrator, one rules keeper, one referee, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Sitting at a table with like 4 or 5 other people guiding their journey and deciding like, how much responsibility is on the players and how much responsibility is on that person. Or you take this same thing and you move it to an online venue where you sometimes run into like, okay, I'm in Skype and I've got 1 person and 4 people, but that's more virtual tabletop.
Yeah,
BTT
counts as TT.
We're talking chat room. We're talking like people have multiple characters, and it's not always grabbing people in groups of 4 or 5. It's like, here's 2 people over here playing these 2 characters and 2 people over here playing these 2 characters, and I'm just in charge of the setting. We're talking games that get hundreds of characters and maybe 3 or 4 storytellers.
And those storytellers are really only there to kind of smooth things over and make certain everybody's playing by the same rules.
They're basically supposed to be a version of the book you can talk to.
Yep.
Now, does it ever really go that way?
Not really. It's funny because like that style of play, like you only need yourself. Like you need Aubrey and you need Alex.
Aubrey. Yes.
And you put Aubrey and Alex in a scene. You decide on some kind of conflict that they're having or that they're trying to resolve, right? And then you and I just go back and forth and play our characters together without having to have a storyteller telling us what's going on. And the idea is, we roll the dice and just accept what the dice say when we do roll the dice. And the storyteller is there if we have any questions. But we are both the storyteller while we are also playing our characters.
Ideally.
And that's how I came to do it. And that's even if you even use sheets and dice. Like, I know there are some people who have had lots of success just completely free-forming it out and just dropping text and stuff without having any dice or rules and just saying stuff happens.
Yeah, it's actually still my main method of roleplay.
Yep.
Maybe not in chat environments that are so big anymore.
Yep.
But it still is my main outlet, and I could talk for days. And I have to. Whoa.
Nothing to see here.
I have talked for days about that, and it's not impossible. It's not unfun. It's I think it's a very valid way to role play. Unfortunately, a lot of other role-playing ideas are brought into it.
You always, and this is what, like, we started off with this, you always need to know what it is that you're gunning to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to know how to do it. I've used this metaphor with you in conversations before, and I will totally legitimize it by using it in an actual broadcast right the fuck now. All right? Let's say that Jimmy wants to roleplay, and he wants to have a good story. And something you will hear almost every single role player say is, I want a good story. Mm-hmm. Never met a role player who was like, I hate good stories, I don't want one. Right? I've met players who are like, nah, story, whatever, I just want to roll some dice, kill some ogres. Right? Like, that's fair. But I've almost never met anybody who didn't say, I want good story. Okay, so we're going to say, for the purpose of this metaphor, good story is driving a car. So saying, I want good story is the same thing as saying, I want to go to the drugstore. Metaphorically speaking, most players will just climb into the car, put their hands on the steering wheel, and go, all right! Yeah!
Scene.
Right? They don't stop to question themselves in going, how do I get the car to go to the grocery store or the drugstore? You have to know how to drive the car. In the same way, if you want good story, you should at least understand the concepts that go into building a good story. And the same thing can be said for playing online. If you're going to play online, you should know how playing online works and the differences between playing online and playing at a tabletop. And don't play as if you're at the tabletop. Play like you're online. Know what you want to get out of the game before you go in. Know what you're supposed to be doing before you do it.
Understand that you need to know what your players want too. If you're going to put yourself in a storyteller position, you need to know what they want from you and out of this game.
Yep.
Do they want you to stop and say, you can't get to the drugstore that fast? You're driving a car with this many drives, dots and drive.
Yeah.
Or do you want them to say, you're driving there, I'll let you decide what happens along the way. I'm just going to make sure that you don't actually stop and drop off a nuke at the nearest place on the way, because that would be kind of destroying to the setting.
Right. That would be disruptive to everybody else. Typically, I just want the storyteller to be there so that when I say, hey, the setting that I am playing in, can you clarify this for me? Because I don't know. Otherwise, typically, I want the story to get his dick out of my story.
The setting is a character, too. The setting is often the character the storyteller plays.
Yeah, no, it's especially and almost explicitly in an online chat-based storytelling game. Okay, let's move on.
Before we
in order for story to happen, this isn't just how does story work and what is story. This is collaborative storytelling. So let's talk about the collaboration that goes into collaboratively telling a story. And we'll open up with as the storyteller, because let's get real here. I'm a player in one game over 8 years. I just don't get to play very often. I am he who is chronically the storyteller, chronically the GM. I just can't get away from it. So you've got so working with the players as the game master. In a tabletop format, one of the ways that I will do this a lot is instead of telling the party something, I will tell a single player something. Mm-hmm. I'll pass them a note, or I'll shoot them an IM, or something like that. And I'll let the characters communicate the stuff in character to each other. You would not believe some of the shit that has happened because I have done this. I have shown player characters in an IM something that was it wasn't a miscommunication. It was just I could have said this person walks the door, shoots at this guy, and this guy has that guy tied up, which is a pretty clear person A rescuing person C from person B in a violent fashion scenario.
Yes.
By the time that character was done communicating with the rest of the party, they were pretty convinced that the savior in this scenario was the villain. That's one way of letting the story develop, by working with your players. Letting the players be the ones to communicate the story to each other. Another way that I see it done is I will occasionally tell... I've done this. I did this once or twice with Pluto Fairy during Darkness Rising. Where instead of me narrating what happens, right, I will tell Pluto Fairy, I think, for the sake of the story, do you agree this would be something that'd be really awesome to happen? Right? And she goes, oh yeah! And I say, okay, well then make it happen. Is there a reason you can find for Tanya to do or say XYZ.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
She'll go, oh yeah, and then she will do the thing that triggers the story moment I'm looking to generate. And in that way, I spend a lot of time, and this is something I learned because specifically in Mage the Awakening, dealing with Acanthus. Acanthus are characters that specialize in the manipulation of fate, destiny, chance, happenstance, and coincidence. Effectively,
they're your plot babies.
Yeah, effectively, you're a plot mage. You're a story mage. You're a little baby storyteller who gets to decide kind of how story scenes will play out. And learning to embrace that as something that a player character had the ability to do was where I learned to work with players as storytellers themselves, where I will say to a player off to the side, look, I kind of want to make this happen, right? And I see an opportunity for this, but I need you to come in at just the right time saying something about this blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh yeah! And then they'll wait, and then right at the prime moment in conversation, they'll bust and be like, were you talking about a shrine? And the whole thing takes off from that moment. There's also the concept of working with the players in the sense of you're not the only person telling the story here. It's one of the most misleading terminologies in the entirety of the World of Darkness books, in my opinion, is they designate one guy as the storyteller.
Well, and yeah.
Yes, I just threw my pencil.
It's a collaborative story, and giving the storyteller title actually has some people believing they have an extra amount of authority.
And it's, I need to know what story it is that Pythagatron wants to tell about Axel.
Right. You can't tell Pythagatron what Axel's story is going to be.
No, I can work with him. I mean, I could, but I'm not supposed to. In the sense that, like, Axel, like, when I said, hey, Pith, one of your party just died. What do you want to do with this? And he goes, hey, actually, I think I want to go down some Mad Max route and do a little bit of crazy, bloodlusty vigilante justice. Like, no more bullshit. I'm sick of people dying, right? And then it's my job to take that. Ooh, Legend of Lori, thank you for the host.
Lori, thank you.
It's my job as the storyteller to take that and then go, okay, well, your character's going to be doing some dark shit. Your character's going to be doing some pretty violent stuff. And that won't be without, like, there's going to be stuff that goes on because of this, right? And it's about finding out what the players want from the game and what they're interested in and finding a way to work it in. We have a story coming up. Right now we're running through episode 4 of Darkness Rising. Episode 5, as requested by the audience, is going to be all about Axel's backstory. The past is going to come back to haunt Axel. And it's going to be really good. And I asked him what that past was. And I asked him what it was that he wanted to have happened, you know, for a story to come back and be about. And he was like, oh, this, and we worked out something that it clicked pretty well. And that's another way I myself have worked with the players. Working with the players is about not saying no. It's about not saying no, and that, I think, is the hardest thing to learn as a GM.
It really is. And Dojel mentioned earlier that, you know, in the online role playing, that the true storyteller should actually be the consensus.
Yes.
The thing that everybody has agreed on. And yes, it should be. What happens when you, as the organizer of the game, don't agree with the consensus? A lot of people don't grasp that well. They try to nudge what the people want towards more of what they want.
Yep.
The players as a whole want a game where it's okay to play, I don't know, a Black Spiral Dancer.
Right.
But the person that is facilitating the game has decided, no, I hate them. I don't want them. I don't care. Every time you get anywhere near it, I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to change the game.
I've got an even more complicated a more prominent example of this. Let's say there's a player who doesn't just want to play a Black Spiral Dancer. They want to play a character who straddles good guy and bad guy. They want to play a character, and what they legitimately want is they want to play a character who does horrible things but isn't necessarily a bad guy. Right? Does horrible things in the name of good, or maybe play the story of a Black Spiral Dancer who is redeemed. Right? But then you've got a whole bunch of people who don't want to do that. The storyteller doesn't want to play that out. What do you do in that situation? How do you work with the player on that?
How do you work with the storyteller on that? How do you work in that situation?
To me, this is what happens when you don't sit down and determine what people want from the game.
Right.
And it is collaborative. And if what you want from the game doesn't mesh with what other people want from the game, you're going to have a hard time collaborating on that.
Right. Now imagine doing this on a scale of like having 40, 50 characters.
And let's take it up a notch. Not just 40, 50 characters, 20, 30 players.
Been there.
In an online chat room, that stuff can get really hairy.
It gets super messy because once you agree that someone can do something, you have to basically go through your QR pass
that's actually that Dirch K just nailed the exact next talking point.
Yes.
That is legitimately, like, I had that written down. The ST, or the GM, is a player at the table. Holy shit. This was something I only recently learned, like, clicked. Like, it seems almost ridiculously obvious that the ST is a player at the table, the GM is a player at the table. But even as somebody who, like, I'm always the GM, I am legitimately always the storyteller in almost every game I ever play, I only just recently learned after a decade of this shit to think of myself as a player at the table.
Right, no, because it used to be herding cats.
Yeah.
Like, even when you tried to be really good about it, you always brought it back to, not you personally, but everybody that's put in that position is just like, no, I'm here to give them their story.
Yeah, to give them their story and to make certain they're having fun and make certain everybody gets their chance to shine, and all of the advice you ever hear about on, like, go Google how to be a good GM. Every last single fucking piece of that advice is going to be about facilitating players.
Make your players happy.
Yep. Understand what your players want. Give them what you want. When I learned this, I was running my Sunday Mage game, and I was in a situation where one of my player characters just wasn't very engaged in the story. They weren't attached to anything. They weren't very motivated by it. They were around and they were playing. They weren't interacting with many NPCs because they never had any reason to. They just kind of, like, they were in the background until it was time to use their abilities. And what I realized was they weren't playing with me. I wasn't playing with them, and that's why that bothered me. It bothered me because I wasn't getting to play with my friend at the table. And as soon as I realized that I was a player as well. I never got to sit down and have those improv character-driven sessions where my NPCs developed, or his character got to do something cool. He didn't talk to anybody. I never role-played with him. And the only gameplay we ever had was me telling him that his spells worked. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like that, I mean, obviously that's part of being a GM, but that wasn't the extent of what I wanted to do.
The automated grant.
Yeah, I was a game server. And once we realized that, we quickly fixed the problem. We understood, like, okay, so what... I asked, what can I do to bring you more to engage with me as a player? And we had that chat, and then we talked about what he as a player could do to work with me as the storyteller. When I'm storytelling, I really, really, really like playing the NPCs.
There's a certain pimp.
I
really like... I like that pimp.
Hold my chain! I'm actually thinking there is a story being told about Judas on Darkness Rising.
Yes.
Judas just went through a traumatic experience. He is fucking pissed. He is going, like, and like, he is a fascinating character to me, and I can't wait until Judas makes his next appearance and I get to play him.
Judas and Levi was like, where the fuck is Tanya?
Yeah.
That was some stuff. That was some, and Judas is an NPC.
Yeah, like, Judas is an NPC, yeah. And like that NPC was fucking emotionally intense. And it's about having it's about having, to me, it's about playing the NPCs. In the case of Darkness Rising, I have a lot of fun playing Judas. I have a lot of fun playing Jarvis. I like playing the Leaflings. And Judas is the first example to come up in Darkness Rising of an NPC that I've really sunk my teeth into, and really had that like this is a character I can play, right? Cassie is another. Actually, no, Cassie is also a character. She had a loud voice, so to speak, a very loud muse. And I had fun playing her to the other player characters and building a relationship between the player characters and the NPC. Like, that interaction is what I really like to do.
Yeah, the GMPC or STPC, like, NPC is also a term that gets misused in the online games a lot too, where storytellers will take and roll up a character that's a little bit more powerful or a little bit more authoritative than everyone else and call it an NPC, and then play it like it's one of their characters. Essentially, yes, it is GM characters that we're talking about here.
To me, the point is, it is a PC or an NPC when the core of the story, when that NPC is center stage and it's all about that NPC, it's not an NPC. It's a PC, and you just happen to be playing it. If for instance, in the case of Judas, Judas had a real intense experience, and I'm really interested in the story of Judas, but Judas is an NPC. That means the game isn't about Judas. As I tell the story of Judas, it will be alongside the PC stories for the purpose of providing more plot fuel and more adventure fuel for those PCs to have their story. What Judas does will cause things that the PCs have to interact with. And the spotlight will always be on the PCs.
Whatever rotating ones there happen to be.
Yeah.
Thanks to deaths. And
I already know I know who's gonna die next. I can't help it.
No more die. Damn it. I can't have this conversation because I'm a fan of the show.
I know, right? No spoilers. No spoilers. But no, totally. The storyteller is a player, and in my case, I get really into the NPCs. That's why I like my NPCs to have stories of their own, which take minor, flowy moments that interact with the PCs. But then there's also, you know, the ST as a player, or the GM as a player in the context of playing the setting.
Right. Now, that's where it can get really, really, really touchy.
Okay.
The setting is your creation, and everybody else is playing in your sandbox.
Right.
And somebody's over there mucking up your sandbox that you're attached to.
Right.
As a player. How do you...
That can get really hairy in more particularly in the online role-playing format. I've always found that the answer to that is to think of the setting as a character. In that your setting has, you know, boundaries. It has form. It has shape. It is a living, breathing thing. But characters aren't static. They change. They evolve. They react. And that is where most people who get too attached like that to their setting, they fuck up. Because the characters are supposed to, like, as a character, it's supposed to go through changes, it's supposed to develop, and more importantly, it has a relationship with every other character in the game, namely the PCs.
See, but if you think of yourself as a player and not a GM, you need to understand character affect each other instead of your PC affecting this perfect world you want to live forever.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Like I was just saying that as
pretty
you
much.
That
that's
up.
Exactly. Yes.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
We're all on the same page here.
Yeah. I think we pretty much nailed that. So let's talk about let's talk about the DMPC concept here real quick, right? Because it's been mentioned, I actually had a note down here because it's hard not to bring up the DMPC. We've all heard about how the DMPC can go wrong, and most of us have experienced the DMPC as a game element going terribly fucking wrong. I will never forget the day I was playing Vampire the Requiem, and I had a Gangrel Brawler Claw Combat Monkey. I was gifted an item that would give me extreme luck, and I used it. The result was, because of the stats that I had, the dice that I had, and the item the GM gave me, I had 27 goddamn dice to roll, which is an absurd amount of dice in Vampire the Requiem. Fucking absurd. As a result, I got an absurd amount of successes. I dealt something like 15 aggravated damage to one of these NPCs, one of these monsters we were fighting. Now, to my knowledge, it wasn't even an important NPC. If it had turned out, oh, he was supposed to be the BBEG the whole time, I wouldn't have had a problem with the storyteller being, oh, he's fine, right? But we're talking some random schmuck ghoul, right? Just this random goon, this mook, and I did 15 fucking aggravated damage to this thing in one round.
Which is an insane amount. Insane.
That's enough to destroy tanks, mountains, buildings, cars, countries, like.
Vegeta!
Yeah, like this is absurd. The system is not designed to handle something this intense. And the storyteller at the time narrated me giving a grazing wound to that mook, and then his DM NPC came in with a giant sword and cut everything in half. Like I'm not exaggerating. This is how DMPCs go wrong. The idea is that when you have your storyteller as also a player, it becomes very easy to abuse your position as the GM to benefit your character. Typically, I find that this is difficult to pull off in a lot of games because, I mean, let's be honest here, you got a dungeon crawl. This is a terrible kind of scenario for a DMPC because the DM knows where all the fucking traps are. He knows what's in the dungeon, he built it.
He built the dungeon.
It's just not, and that's not even a matter of metagaming. That's just not fun. I don't enjoy that. Part of the fun of the dungeon crawl is going through and not knowing what's around the corner, right? And I just don't get that with the DMPC in that situation. But where it can go horribly wrong, it can also go amazingly right. In Sunday, I have two DMPCs. Both of which, now that I think about it, have died and been saved by time travel.
That's a...
I have to work on that. But these two characters have spawned so much story for the PCs in and among their own story. Remainder is Bill's character's little brother, and Faith, because I like doing all the why come up with a new name when you have one that works well just fine. Faith,
everybody's Faith today.
Faith is a sleeper with a telepathic power that has been infiltrating the BBEG's evil cult for some time, and that like those two characters have been. Jen can ramble on for hours and hours about how she loves these two NPCs, and they are pretty much always around the party at this point. Like, you know, they started as like showing up here or there, but like they both literally live with the party in the party's house.
Now they're tag-alongs.
They're part of the team now. And I remember that these characters aren't supposed to be at the forefront of all the problems being solved, and that when these characters do solve problems, it's supposed to create the situation the PCs then get to handle, because the story is about the PC. And it, like, if I was like, all right, I'm not going to be playing Faith or Remainder as prominently anymore, like, my players would be mad with me because they really like that. They love those characters and the relationships and all that stuff. So it can go horribly right as well if it's handled correctly.
Right. Yeah. I I always like the idea of, you know, everybody feeling like they're playing.
Yep.
Because unless you're getting paid, you don't want to be there to just make sure everybody else is playing just okay. Like, you might as well just take a step back from the table and be a producer.
as somebody who has both been a storyteller and produced a show, like in this, like, storyteller and producer of the same game. Like, Darkness Rising isn't just a game, it's also a show. Like, it is a whole different beast.
So yeah, I'm not sure what else I was gonna say about that.
All right, so we can move on to giving story and getting story.
Ooh, all right. Man, getting story and giving story.
Okay, so what is giving story? What is it to give story to somebody?
Well, I could say in an instance that giving story might be interjecting at all in the I want to go to the drugstore.
Okay.
And introducing a character of your own that the player didn't plan to be on the path to the drugstore because they're going out in public and they can't control who they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So basically just, man, I'm trying to find a good example. Like, I'm trying to actually, like, rack my brain for an actual example where something has happened.
So, while you're racking your brain, all right, when somebody says to me that they want to give or get story, this is important because a collaboration is both giving and getting from both parties. To give somebody else story is to be the person who takes the initiative and causes things to happen. When you're giving story, typically in your average game, the GM does all of the giving of story. Mm-hmm. I decide that as the GM, like, okay, so it's dark and stormy night in the tavern that you have just saved from rats in the basement, right?
Story good.
Right, and the story that I decide to tell is there's a wizard in a distant tower that has kidnapped the princess, and the party characters are the only ones that can save her. Okay, so I have constructed this scenario that has caused things to move forward, right? I have done all of the work so that their characters can be at the center of a story. I've done the stuff other than their character. If I was the player, getting story would be sitting down with the character, having done the work of coming up with my character's personality and my stats and all that shit, and sat down and gone, okay, I'm ready to receive some story, set me up and let's play. And the GM says, in the distant forest of Schnugglenarf, there is the phallic tower, capital P. And in the phallic tower, in the forest of Schnugglenarf, is a princess being held captive by a wizard, and you are the only one who can rescue her because you have the dagger of Schnagglenorf slaying.
Yes!
Alright, he just sat down and told me this whole thing, and now I can start working and doing stuff in the story, right? But I, as the player, received that story. I didn't make it, right? That was his idea.
Right, but now how, as a player, do you give story?
As a player, I give story by looking at the GM, and I say, you know, that other PC's dead. My character's now horribly depressed. Like, this is changing my character's life, and my character is going to go way off the rails and become this murderous fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and just go like some crazy Mad Max stuff. That is you as the player having an idea, right? Yeah, totally. Having an idea that creates story that the GM himself didn't create. That's me as the GM being able to go, oh man, I wonder what happens next.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, okay, so I'm going to go back to the online roleplay thing for a second.
Yep. If you hadn't noticed, online is his thing and tabletop is my thing.
Yeah. The reason I'm going back to the online roleplay thing is because of how it changes the perspective is
the dynamic of give and give story, yeah.
Because you don't get the one-on-one interaction with the storyteller all that often. You don't get the storyteller coming in your scene and going, it's a dark and stormy night.
Right.
Online roleplay is facilitated when two players get together and decide what they're doing.
Yeah.
So getting and giving story is a little bit different when usually the thing that will cause a scene, two people to get together and start playing, is someone will go in there and say, I'm bored. Or someone will say, I would like to do something with this character.
Right.
Now, the next logical question is, what would you like to do with that character? Oh, I don't know. I'm just looking for something to do.
Right. That player is looking to receive story.
Receive story.
And they're looking for someone to give them story. Now, in my shoes, what we're talking about is a collaborative storytelling game. I, as the storyteller, love receiving story. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to find out what happens next between Axel and Levi. I can't wait to see a little harder, a little darker, a little more, a little more intense Jack. Right? I want to know what they're gonna do. I want to know what they're gonna try. I want to see the characters evolve, and I love it when somebody looks at me and says, "Actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna kill her." Right? Where their character just did something that completely grabbed the story by the horns and made it go forward. Right? I love it when players do that because that's me being able to sit back and watch the show. Just like the player is normally sitting back and watching the show and then interjecting, right? And being finding a group of players where you can go back and forth like that is really difficult. I am lucky on Darkness Rising. You
have blessed. A really great group.
Axel, Pith, Optical, Pluto Fairy, and Matt are great players, and we have a great flow. As an example, when spoilers, when Tanya died. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I had not a clue. She was in the front. The boss rolled a crit. She was already wounded. Pop goes the weasel, right? Now, I as the GM, looked at that and said, I'm not, I don't have to kill her here. It can be a near mortal wounding, or I can do some story to save her life, right? Pluto Fairy saw me thinking that, and instead said, hey, before I die, can I do X? And I knew that was Pluto Fairy deciding Tanya can die here.
Tanya can die here.
And
there's a topic for an episode.
Ooh, character death. And I knew that, I hadn't expected Tanya to die. That hit me just as hard as it hit anybody else, because I had no idea it was going to happen. That was actually Pluto Fairy giving me story.
Right. Okay.
And that back and forth of Pluto Fairy giving me story and then me giving Pluto Fairy story to work with is I have that with all 4 of my players on Darkness Rising, and that's what the collaborative storytelling play style is all about. I think that pretty much just covers the whole.
Yeah, that's pretty much our take on it. Has there been anything from chat that you guys have thought, have you had any experiences with maybe the shared storyteller sort of thing, or do you play more in games where one person is kind of guiding the show?
Let's do this. Ready? Let's move the Q&A.
Q&A, we've got Q&A, guys.
We got time to kill. We got plenty of time to kill.
We got time. We got some Q&A.
We got the topic for today's stuff is story, specifically story.
Story and how you present it and everything.
So are there uh are there any questions players have about story? It doesn't have to be necessarily about the narrative style of play. It could also just be about telling cool stories. Like I had Walk Zombie approach me earlier and ask how he could like try and facilitate more emotionally intense stories. As an example.
Okay, yeah. Dojel, shoot.
Go ahead, drop it on me, Dojel. What do you got? What if a
What
story
if
starts with the end?
To the end.
Okay, what do you mean, Zordius? Do you mean let's show the end of the story and then rewind and play everything leading up to the end of the story? Or do you mean having your story begin at at the end of another story? Either of you ever played a roleplay where the larger world was not meant to be roleplayed in?
Yes.
Yes, and yes.
I have played. I actually love smaller scope games. I like constricted scope games because I think it gives you more focus on the characters. There are places for like world trekking games, which are great and everything. But I actually like the idea of let's tell the story of a high school. Like the rest of the world out there could be fucking crazy. You can develop tons and tons and tons of lore for it, but only some of it really kind of trickles in as you get more inter-character interactions. Where our setting is right here,
just this high school.
Just this high school. Doesn't matter what's going on over there. I actually prefer games like that. Back to Zordius though.
So playing the game is one large flashback. Is it possible? Yeah. Would I do that? Not necessarily. To me, not knowing how it's going to turn out in the end is the majority of the fun. Because if I already know how it ends, then it becomes so much more difficult to create intensity and create that really emotionally involving moment. That said, there is a show that over the course of the first season, they show you multiple times how the story will end because they have characters who can tell the future. Heroes is like there are 2 or 3 different characters that can all just tell. They know exactly what's going to happen.
New miniseries this month. Sorry.
And they don't. What they didn't do in the first season of Heroes was say we can change the future. That's not what happened. And you knew that wasn't what was going to happen because you could see the whole thing building up towards the end. Now the difference between TV and role playing is that TV is not a collaborative storytelling.
Yeah, the story told in flashback bubble is a narrative tool that works when you control the whole narrative.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work well in role play unless you're willing to say this is the possible future. How can you change it?
You have to have a bunch of players that are very specifically interested in seeing you railroad the story to that ending.
That too.
And that can totally happen. You could find players who are very much interested in seeing you push the story towards a specific point by establishing that point first. And a lot of times those players will work with you. But I myself, because it's a collaborative storytelling format, I tend to not do that. What I will do is start the story at a potential end and then rewind and see what happens. Or I wholeheartedly admit I'm a time travel nut. I fucking love time travel stories. I will never not love time travel stories. I have loved them since Chrono Trigger. And I'll say, hey guys, here's what's going on. Right, all the PCs, you've been doing X, Y, Z. Boom, boom, boom. 3 people die. You can't handle this. Go back in time. Stop it from happening. Right, like that's a way to start a story in it. Okay, Jim Link. As a GM, how would you manage episode 2 of a story where part 1 finished with all the players dying and one character becoming the arch nemesis? Would you arrange some private session with the main enemy, or would he play at the same time as all the other players? Personally, as a GM, you hand over your character sheet. In games that I play, I don't myself prefer to let PCs play the villains. At least not knowingly. I have run the games where the PCs were unwittingly the evil twins or what have you.
If the focus of the game shifts to a villain's game, like another way you can take it is the good guys died. Only one person remained. He's now the bad guy. Everybody re-roll bad guys and play the evil party.
That's another way to go. But like I myself wouldn't let a PC or wouldn't let a player at the table be the BBEG.
Right.
Unless I was specifically looking for PvP.
Right. If you're trying to get back to this cooperative thing of, once again, player plus player. Don't put them on opposite factions.
I would say now, if the goal was the PvP, I would run 2 games. One with that villain doing his villain thing off on the side, because it's one of the basic rules of D&D. Don't put the BBEG on it where the players can hit them, because he will die, right? And then the other game would be with the party. And then I would have moments where if I ever needed them in the same scene, I would pull them all together for a play session together. But that would be very established, very explained, and very well thought out and planned, and everybody would be on the same page if I ever were to do that.
But yeah, there have to basically be, and part of the agreement of what you want from the story, when you're setting up your game or what you want from the game, you also have to agree what goes outside those boundaries. And should anything go outside those boundaries, you then have the right to say, nope, hand over the character sheet.
Okay, Zordius, I myself haven't played Life is Strange yet. So, that said, I can't answer that question, except, as a time travel nut...
He's gonna love it.
I
need to watch my playthrough.
I have a, I haven't played it, and I don't want to expose, but I do have a character on my Sunday game that I'm currently running who is a chronomancer. They are a time mage. They can rewind time. They can tell the future. They can look at the past. And that kind of rewind power is by no means, like, a problem for me. Like, it doesn't matter to me that the players can rewind time. The players are looking to tell a good story as much as I am. So if the story happens to be about somebody who can rewind time, that doesn't pose a problem. It's not like it would be a problem if I was in a win-lose type of scenario and I was playing a more, like a game-oriented tactical game where rewinding time would be fucking overpowered as shit. But because there's no such thing as overpowered in a story. Right?
Right. Well, yeah, Bronny, is it good that a story would go too far off the main line that it becomes an entirely different genre? Is it
good? Like, I don't really think there's something I could say is good or bad.
As long as everybody's enjoying themselves, I mean, like, the story becomes... I have had characters do things that, like, I literally talk about my characters as if they're real people sometimes. And maybe that should get me admitted somewhere. But I have literally sat down to write something for a character and ended up with something that had nothing to do with anything I ever imagined that character doing.
Yep. Oh my god, the number of times I've done that. Like, holy shit.
They take on their own lives, and sometimes the stories do too.
If the story takes on... Like, I myself, I have a basic rule. If I never argue with my own characters, I never tell them that their decisions are wrong. They make their decisions, and I let them do that. And if I don't like what that character's first instinct was, that's not my beef. Like, that's the whole point, is once the character started impulsively making their own decisions outside of me, then I think that's a success. And if that's not what I had planned for, then whatever. Like, who gives a fuck about my plans? That said, if I myself sat down to tell a story about cowboys and zombies, and I really wanted some cowboy zombie goodness, right? And then the story kind of veered off and became something entirely different, and I wasn't happy with what it became, then I would have an issue. But to answer your question, Brawny Oak, the answer to is this good is entirely based on do you like what the result is.
Yeah, it seems like it's such a, like, stupid answer. Well, I was like, do you like it? Fuck it.
I mean, I don't mean to like trivialize the question, but that's really all I got for you.
Yeah, like, no, it runs so deep, and it's not just story alone. It's actually aspects that you just throw in there. It's like, of things that actually happen in game that make no sense. Does everybody at the table agree that it can fit within their consensus?
Does it seem consistent with the game world? Dojal, that's a great question. Grant and Frank, what advice do you have for players who can't think of a good story for their character? May I?
Go first. Yes,
all right.
You may.
Yes, okay, so my answer to you is that I come at this from the perspective I'm also a writer. I'm not just a role player, and I don't just say that because, oh, I happen to write out a lot of my role playing. Like, no, legitimately, I have studied writing novels in the publishing industry. There are two schools of thought regarding telling a story. One is, I'm not pulling this story out my nostril. I have no idea what's happening. Oh, look at the story. Right? Where there's no planning and no thought and nothing. And you just go off the seat of your pants. A lot of people seem to think this is how it's supposed to work. And some people do some great work like that. Holy shit. You know who writes like that? Stephen motherfucking King writes like that. He doesn't structure or outline. He just writes. That said, a story is a machine. That machine has parts. Those parts can be labeled and understood and analyzed. Plot is a sense of progress for the story. Conflict, character. You can describe all the bits and pieces of this and understand how they fit together. And then what you start doing is, once you understand the mechanics of how a story works, you just start fucking hanging shit on signs. Okay, so for example, let's talk about pulp. Pulp stories. Conan the fucking Barbarian. Here's how this works, ready? You have the following pieces that will make this story happen. You have the hero. Duh. You have the location.
Okay.
The strange place that he goes where there is something going on. You have a monster. That monster might actually be another person, a villain, an antagonist, but it's something that if he does not handle the monster in a permanent fashion, he will die. Then, you have a goal. Conan the Barbarian wants to steal the eye of the elephant. Some fancy gem, alright? And then you have the lover. And the lover is the person that is there romantically interested in the character. Those 5 pieces will give you a really solid pulp story no matter what you do with them. If you decide the monster and the lover are the same thing and tell a story about a vampire hunter being charmed by the very thing he's trying to hunt, you'll still have a pretty fucking pulp story. If you tell a story about the child of a demon who struggles against his bloodline to be a good person, who is seeking the acquisition of an ancient artifact in the pit that was left when people tried to dig to hell, with the lover of the forbidden princess who shouldn't have anything to do with him but can't get enough of him, and a giant pit lord as you will have a solid story no matter what you do. You just hang it. That's how genre writing works. It's a formula, and identifying that formula will create stories for you even when you don't have ideas. Outline is what I would say, but know what you're outlining.
Outline's a good thing. Okay, now are you saying now I'm gonna take it from the I have no inspiration or I can't think of anything angle. Then roll some dice. Draw some tarot cards.
Tarot is another thing that I was going to mention. Yep.
Basically, dive into a resource full of something that you can't control the outcome on. Like, if you pull up a chart of like 100 events and then roll and see which event you get. And start brainstorming from that and say, does this work for my character or not? The tarot card thing is something that's brought up a lot because we've done it before. It's a really handy way to do it because these cards don't have to mean anything specific or could mean everything specific.
Yep. And
you pull a card, you look at it, you see, what does this look like to me?
Yep. It's another like, if you're looking for just ideas, like places to get ideas, reskinning movies, reskinning books, taking the story of something and going, okay, so let's take Indiana Jones. I want a backstory, right? Indiana Jones is what I'm going to start with, but I'm going to reskin it. So instead of an archaeologist, he's going to be the cable guy. And instead of being like a pyramid full of ancient artifacts, it's going to be a crashed UFO filled with alien technology. Now you have the story about a cable guy who just happened upon a UFO crash and has all this alien tech he's got to deal with. Which has
got to be an interesting story as well. It's probably stars Jim Carrey.
Probably. Does it?
Or Adam Sandler.
Or something like that. But
another good thing is like identify archetypes you like. You don't actually have to play Rocket Raccoon but you can play Rocket Raccoon.
Yep. The homage is another good way to go. But like legit, I think that if you don't have an idea for a backstory, starting with something that you don't have to have ideas for, and then
making your own.
And then just changing it, just deciding this is a backstory that has existed in the past. I'm gonna change. What can I change? Can I turn this into that? Can I turn this into that? Can I flip these two things backwards? Boom. I also think that backstories are, as a side note, backstories are not supposed to be full stories.
No, please, no, please. Oh my god!
I just love the face and the hand and.
No, please don't get me started on that. Please, I love reading interesting backstory. You know, I like reading where characters have come from, and it's great in novels. It's great when you have something you can pull back in, like a flashback scene or a flashback episode. I can't wait to see what Axel's backstory is.
Yep.
That sort of thing. But when you put all of that effort into what happened before you started playing, all the interesting stuff has happened before you started playing.
My rule of thumb is that the backstory is not a backstory. Because the story is there was a conflict and I resolved it. Instead, instead the backstory is, this is what my character wants to do but can't do. Backstories, you haven't succeeded yet. That's my rule of thumb. You haven't won yet. You haven't succeeded. You haven't fixed it. The backstory is, this is my character's problem.
Right, because it should set up the problem. Because if you've actually overcome the conflict in your backstory, why are you in the game?
This is why when I GM, I look at my players and I say, I need unresolved conflicts. That's the words that I use for that. And I ask each player for 3 of these. As an example, I'll use Levi. I think he had two unresolved conflicts. The first of which was he has a little sister that he has to take care of, but he has no idea how to communicate with her.
No.
That was
no.
Levi.
You can't put out an APB on a 50.
Right, and Matt, as the player, said, my character has a little sister named Elsa, right, and we don't get along, and I don't understand her from a hole in the wall, but our parents are both dead, so I gotta look after her. That's one of his unresolved conflicts. The other one is his business was having a rough time, and there's this guy who's been trying to buy out his business, and like has been like pushing in on that antique shop. That hasn't come up yet. But those are 2 things that his character had when he started the game that hadn't been resolved. And there has been some great roleplay as a result, because what I then do is I use those unresolved conflicts as character hooks. Why are you interested in this story? Because it's connected to your character's backstory.
What would you recommend to people who have a concept? This concept has a similar story that already exists, basically ripping off it unwittingly. Work with it. If okay, you might get the person that just says, I want to play the Punisher. If the Punisher doesn't fit your game, talk to them and be like, I don't think the Punisher belongs here. However, if they just say, I want to play the Punisher, and the Punisher can conceivably exist in your world, then you've got something good to call back on too, because you probably understand who the Punisher is.
Good artists copy. Great artists steal. The bottom line is that there are only so many stories that could be told. Blah blah. Everybody's heard about it, right? There's 3 different kinds of conflicts, and there's only so many different scenarios, and basically it's all
there's like 7 different stories. That's it.
And you could boil it down to, without detail. You can generically come to these several structures, but I wholeheartedly feel that stealing an artist optical is actually kidnapping and is against the law. If it bothers you that your story is too close to a story that you've already seen, then change your story. A couple times I have done this have been I've changed I've changed the gender of the protagonist. A change as simple as that is often enough to like just spur an entire cascade of difference. And it's okay. In the world of publishing, nobody gives a shit how good your idea is. Nobody. Your idea means nothing. Having a good idea for a story is irrelevant.
Do you have a good story?
It's not even do you have a good story. In the publishing world is how well can you tell it.
Well, yeah.
You pass a book up to an editor. That editor opens it up, reads 2 sentences of the first page. They then have decided if they're going to get to the end of the first paragraph. If they like the first paragraph, they'll read the first page, and if they get to the bottom of the first page, you go in the maybe pile. So many books never get published because the editor goes, I have 1,000 books to look at today. First 2 sentences, fuck that. Fuck, your story is irrelevant. The idea for your story is irrelevant. However,
you don't get like a really big pitch.
The originality at the tabletop. To bring this back on point, to bring it back to where we're going, what we're talking about here, how original your story is irrelevant. How cool your story is and how much fun it is relevant. If you have a concept that's similar to a story that's already been told, if you want to play the Avengers, but not the Avengers, play the Avengers, but not the Avengers. Like, you don't have to be unique. You don't have to be original.
Yeah, like it's Grant has a favorite story that he probably can give some examples from.
Which one are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of Alice.
Yep. Oh god, the number of times I have just taken Alice in Wonderland and just been like, Alice in Wonderland, but this. Alice in Wonderland, but that. Alice in Wonderland, I've done it like 400 times.
Alice in Wonderland, but a werewolf.
I've done that.
It's done it. It's been done.
I have actually done that. And it's I feel like too many people give up on stuff that could have been a hell of a lot of fun because they were worried about being original.
Right.
It's not about being original, it's about being interesting. You wanna play Batman? Play Batman.
I mean,
that's what you want to play, isn't it?
Just don't go selling yourself as the ultimate Batman because somebody might call you on that shit.
Yeah, like just don't bother.
Don't be Batman. Just be Batman.
Just play Batman. Yeah, no, like legit. I think that the what an interesting topic to jump into. But no, legit. I think that originality is not a concern. It is not a mark of a good story to be original. It's not a mark of a good story to be unique. It is not a mark of a good storyteller to be original.
And I think back onto that characters doing things and growing in ways we don't expect. You could start them out as like people do stress so much on having their here's my well-rounded character. Now I start playing. No, throw your little bullshit out there and keep throwing it up against walls and see which ones it sticks to. And then you get yourself a well-rounded character. And then, like, after a bit, you can pitch it to somebody and say, hey!
You mean kind of like when I design a character who is explicitly supposed to be absolutely oblivious to sex, period. And he winds up falling in love with another guy.
That's never happened.
That's never happened ever in the history of ever. I've never had characters go, oh, by the way, Grant, hi, I'm gay, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's that. What you of all you?
That's never happened to both of us.
I don't know what about.
Okay.
The Owlman, which is identical to Batman but not Batman. Exactly, Jim Lee. Like shit. If you're having fun and it's engaging you, go forth and be Owlman. Like
put your creative things out there. You'll probably run into some originality anyways. Like just don't go in with the goal of being something that nobody has ever been.
Yeah,
because you're going to disappoint yourself.
and honestly, like Aubrey on my D&D game is by no means an original character in the slightest. I mean, Aubrey, the identity of Aubrey, the individual of Aubrey is, he's original. I created him. But Aubrey is a collection of big tropes. He is a gentle giant. He is a brute with a stick. He is he is a simpleton. He is a zealot.
Savant.
Yeah, he's a zealot. He's a savant in his area of expertise, and he's a paladin. He is also an anti-hero. And I just described Aubrey pretty in a really well-rounded fashion, using concepts that we all understood previous to Aubrey existing. Like, there's nothing new about Aubrey. Aubrey is just my character. I think a lot of people strive so hard to do something new and original that they don't understand what makes a character interesting. They just see that originality as their goal.
Fruit with a stick, usually in a target-rich environment.
Usually in a target-rich environment.
There you go.
Yep.
But I mean, he seems. This is a much more compassionate Aubrey. Not that he's not ever been, but the idea that he's just going to walk up and heal one of the people they're interrogating.
Yep.
And don't kill him. Don't kill him just because he did. No, don't. No. I see Aubrey saving lives where
it's funny because
like they're bad people, and he's just like.
It's funny because there's a lot of tension in the Friday morning D&D game right now because the party didn't want to just kill the human thugs that were terrorizing the town, and Aubrey didn't get it. He was dropping them in front of their own. He took an unconscious body, dropped it in front of the thugs. Like he took one of the thugs, knocked it out in the fight, grabbed it, dropped it in front of the thugs' clubhouse, and threatened to set it on fire to make a point. Like, at the same time that he is a compassionate, he has that other flip side of being this bloodthirsty, murderous ass dick, is going to be the word I'm going to use for that.
I can see that too, Dojel. Especially if you're working with something really established. Like working in existing settings and stuff like that, where people have developed a ton. And it's like, where do I start? Really, at that point, you just got to be decisive. You guys got to pick one spot and say, I'm playing with this right here. If I have to cut the rest of this shit out and pretend it doesn't exist, it doesn't until it matters.
Honestly, I think my brain is like, blah, 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 blah. I mean, honestly, I think part of the problem is not that people have issues with that they're not original, but that depending on settings, there's about 25,000 options, and you really can't make a coherent thought to choose from any. Yeah, okay, so this is actually opening the door to something that I was just talking about with Jen recently. Rules are not a list of options. Blah, what? That was my impression of the audience. Right, okay.
Mind blown.
I view the rules as a language. So, Frank, let's assume that we are discussing what we want to have for dinner, and I want to tell you that I prefer turkey pot pie. But I don't want it burnt, okay? I just explained that to you in English. I could potentially explain that to you in French, German, Japanese, Latin, Pig Latin, right? The language does... The language is not a... I look at rules as a language rather than a list of choices of words. So if I go to play a character, I use the rules to express that character. I don't assemble that character from the options of the rules.
Yeah, don't make the sheet and then make the character based on the sheet.
Provided your goal is collaborative storytelling. Again, this is all in the context of collaborative storytelling.
Make the character and then look at the rules to see how you represent that character.
I knew who Aubrey was as a person before I made his sheet.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Aubrey, gentle giant, brute the stick in a usually target-rich environment. Changing the dream. Okay, if you came to me and said, I want to play the brute with the stick usually in a target-rich environment that's a gentle giant, I would say you want to play a troll. I'm giving you the definition in the books of what you want to play. I'm giving you the word in the
words
language.
To express my character, right?
Because he doesn't go and look at the Changeling book like a menu and say, I want to play a troll. Now, what is a troll?
Right.
I
have a character, and then I mean, you can. And I find that like the problem that Dojel is describing is pretty much the result of to me that feels backwards. I realize it's not, because like there are other ways to play the game, and the way that I have always played that concept of cracking open the book and picking out of the 25,000 options is backwards. Now, I will say there are times where I have half a concept, I don't have a full idea, and I kind of like
start browsing.
I start browsing. I'm like, oh, it could be a gentle giant this or a gentle giant that. I could do like a gentle giant satyr or a gentle giant puka or something, and those would be very different characters, right? But I never begin strictly from the options in the book. I always have an idea that I want to know. How do these rules express my idea? How do I say Aubrey in D&D versus how do I say Aubrey in World of Darkness?
Right. No. I think I know. We're talking about not just the rules. We're talking about the setting itself. We're talking about
okay.
Or how do I want to play this kind of character, but what game do I play it in? Or yeah, you can be anything you can think of. Now choose.
That okay, right there. You're not choosing. I could be anything I think of. That's not a choice. It's a blank page.
Right. Now
a choice implies options. If my options are there's no list, anything goes, then I'm not choosing anything. Right?
Right. But now where does Dojel start on the paper? That's the question he's asking.
Right. Okay, honestly, that situation like that isn't really a whole part of the collaborative storytelling. I think that first and foremost, you just talk to your GM.
Yeah.
Actually, the Robo just made a thought happen in my brains. Check this out, ready? If you don't have any ideas, you're having a hard time coming up with a character to play, and you're looking to get into a collaborative storytelling game, remember that the character is a vehicle for that story. Everybody is going to need to play with your character. Everybody's going to need to play stories involving your character. So if you don't have a fully fleshed out idea, get your other players and storyteller to collaborate with you on your character.
There you go. Bingo. All right.
Nailed it. All right, we got it.
Now, instead of me rambling off into the direction of Pizza Hut.
God, I'm so hungry. This is for you.
And you can, optical. Well, someone says you can be anything you want. Now choose. You make your own list. You list out your options, then you choose from that list. Yeah. But it is back to the whole collaboration of like understanding what the game is, understanding what people want from the game. Your list probably isn't as broad as you think it's going to be.
Right. For example, if somebody says you can be anything you want, now choose, right? And you say, you know what, I want to play a spandex-wearing superhero, and the storyteller goes, okay, so maybe we should specify a little bit.
Because this is not a spandex-wearing superhero game. This is actually a cowboys and zombies game.
Right, and saying it could be anything like that's when you can sit. I'll be like, okay, what kind of story what kind of story does everybody want to play here? Loosely speaking, like, does anybody have any ideas what we're after? And then once you know what the goal is, you can construct a character that will facilitate that.
Right, it's like you don't want to play a Power Ranger in Harry Potter. Unless the story is actually to play
fucking amazing
Power Ranger.
I want to play a Power Ranger with a pet T-Rex who can play the guitar. I mean, the T-Rex can play the guitar.
Okay.
Right? and I want to surf on radio waves.
The options are still vast, and they're going to be that way. But the more you talk about the more you get together with other people and go, no, we want this. No, we don't want that. We don't want to tell this kind of story.
I really think the nail on the head for this answer is if you're having a hard time picking something out, get the other players to help you so that you can build something that will fit the game.
Sometimes really your best way to get in with a bunch of new people is to say, what do you feel like your party needs? Play the character type their party needs.
Yeah.
Are they really short a healer? Okay. Come on down.
Does the group need somebody who's a little impulsive because otherwise they're just gonna sit around planning for 4 hours? Like,
right? Do they have a bunch of people that just talk about like that? Yeah, there you go. Optical.
Okay, so okay, just checking. This will go up. This will go up on YouTube later. Yes, Green Jelly. All right, so we have about an hour left. What do you want to do with that hour?
All right. Um,
This
I
is actually
think,
not something I figured we were gonna have happen.
I think, I think, with this hour, we should convince you to pick up Life is Strange.
I'll tell you what, Poke. I'll tell you what. I will start Life is Strange if you mod my chat. For
During Life is
spoilers.
Strange.
For spoilers. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a done deal. If I've got you modding my chat for spoilers.
Dojel, you have no idea how much time we spend talking when we allow ourselves. We actually stayed relatively on topic this time.
Yeah.
And I am proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
I am proud of ourselves. We are one collective.
I seriously, I have two whole fucking pages of outline for this script, and I didn't get shit. When am I gonna do it? Okay, so right now, as far as, I know this is actually not the really time to be talking about my streaming schedule. That happens at the end. But we'll get to that. So let's do we have any more questions from the audience about narrative play in general?
Yeah, like if you've got anything else, we can touch on that real quick. Otherwise, we probably should.
Or we could just blow open the gates and be like, hey, I have questions about storytelling in general, yeah. or hey, I have questions about role playing in general.
Or have you seen this game? Or you got ideas for future episodes? Or
Robovin. I don't have to get Life is Strange now.
Robo got you Life is Strange.
Hold on, here we go. Ready? Here we go, ready? Hold on.
Alright, okay, Zordius. Alright.
Okay, Zordius, let's go ahead, drop it.
Drop the bomb.
What about Laurel? Pyropup is the name I haven't seen around here in a long time. I know Dojo's got a question. It's a pity. It's really a pity that Walk Zombie isn't here because I know he had questions.
Yeah. Man, I was thinking of like, I've been playing some D&D in space. What have you been playing lately?
Me?
RP wise, yeah.
Okay, so everybody here is probably familiar with Darkness Rising, and if you're not, you can catch it on this channel every Saturday at 4 p.m. EST. I've been playing D&D 5th edition, which is also broadcast on this channel. But I've also got a couple of Mage the Awakening games that I do. I have one-on-one Mage the Awakening game I run with Matt when we're just, when we both have the time, we pick it up and we trade storytellers each adventure, so that his PC becomes a DM NPC when he's storytelling for me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then I've also got I do the same kind of like trading storyteller roles with Jen, but that's not really a game. Like we just pick up a game and run it, and she'll run like a pre-written module for anything, right?
Ooh, there's some questions. Okay, Dirch, best way to get better at playing a character if you don't.
Well, right before you get started here, Poker, right?
Okay.
There you go. Video proof.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
There you go. Life is Strange. It's probably going to be happening. I do recommend that you watch it, even if you've watched me play it and watch other people play it, because there's so many different paths to go through it. It is an enjoyable.
Yeah, it seems like a really viewer friendly game.
It really is. And it is. It's one hell of a brain fuck, and I love it. Let's see. Best way to get better at playing a character if you don't have people to play with all the time.
Writing. Okay, if you don't have people to play with all the time, picking a different format is a great way to go about that. This is one of the advantages to playing online in the written format, and one of the reasons I still do it very rarely nowadays is Frank and I can start a game. As a matter of fact, we have a game.
Mm-hmm.
And don't think I'm letting you get away with Chill and Eve are gonna have. That's gonna happen. Like, I don't care that it's been literally a year since we played a scene in that game, right? But one of the things I'm gonna start doing on the forums is I'm gonna start some play-by-post stuff, and it's gonna be when it's your turn, you post.
Forums, guys. Forums.
And we're getting there. Don't think I've forgotten about the forums. All right. But I would say the best way to get into character and get better at playing a character is to pick a format where lack of availability is like, you know, lack of availability from schedule isn't a problem. Writing is a great way to go about it. There's also daydreaming. This is something Matt does. Matt does this like nobody's business. He is the world-class Olympic level daydreamer. Every day he comes home from work going, hey, I thought of something for Levi. Like, every fucking day. He just thinks about it. All the time.
Throw your writing at someone else. Even if they're not role-playing with you. Just say, hey, can you look at this?
Yep.
Let them ask you questions. Just, I don't know. Just... Sometimes you just got to get it out there, even if you're just sitting there talking to yourself in the mirror.
Okay. So write and pick a format to play in that doesn't that isn't super restricted by schedule and availability. Okay. So how do you feel about a GM who are picky on everything? For example, you want to build a house, but your GM won't even let you roll for it if you can't provide all the detail of the building to a point that you need to have made. And I think it's right up. Find yourself a new GM.
Yeah, that's a bad GM.
That's not working with the players. That's working against the players.
Nobody wants to play real life.
I'm not an architect. Like, you know what a good example of this? Tracy. She is my prime example go-to for this. 1, I have no experience being a woman.
None.
2, I have no experience being a cop. 3, I have no experience being a gun nut, and I have no experience being a car nut. Tracy is a cop, gun nut, car nut woman. That's what she is. I have no experience doing any of that, and I could never play that character if the GM was going to insist that I have all of the real life information at hand, because then I would need to become a car nut, gun nut, cop woman. And that's that. Like, I would just find a new table. I'd find a new GM. It's not an argument. I just pick up and find a new GM.
That's just different styles. There's no way. Like, it's just not gonna work. It's not. Because you're in. No. Let's see, Mia, do you have suggestions?
Bella Dragon. Do I have suggestions for an online site or game where a new player could get a good start learning how to RP? Why, yes. Yes, I do. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Ready? Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put something on the screen here. Ready?
All right.
Here we go. I'm gonna put something on the screen here.
I'm so excited. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
And this is gonna be in this font, and it's gonna use an outline of this. It's gonna be this big. It's gonna be bold. It's gonna be underlined. Boom. Here you go, guys. Right here. Let me see if I can put this right on Pook's face. Fuck you, Pook. Come here. There you go. Right in your face.
Yes. Yes!
If you guys go to nerdcommunity.com and register at that site, the entire point of that website is to get people together role-playing, learning how to play, questions about playing, talking to Pook, talking to me, interacting with all of the people who are involved in the nerd community, making you guys part of this community. That's why I call this nerd community in the first place, is because of you guys. This is a place to talk about the roleplay that has happened, find people to play with, talk about roleplaying, learn about roleplaying, ask questions, answer, etc. The whole point of this website is to get you into roleplaying. Any kind of roleplaying. LARP, online, in your favorite MMO of choice. I don't care if you guys use it to discuss World of Warcraft roleplay. Go right ahead.
Sign up. Make some posts.
Sign up, make some posts, make it happen. Remember, the nerd community does not happen without the community. That's you guys. I told you guys recently you deserve to beat. This is what you spent your XP on. You didn't get a choice. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Sorry, railroading.
All right. You're being railroaded. All right.
Quantum form.
Quantum form. All right. All right. So, what are your thoughts about keeping things from the party? Is there ever a reason in your opinion to do that? Keeping things from the party. This is from Pyropope. I do it constantly.
As the storyteller, or as another player, or
yeah, I think Pyropope's question needs to be a little more fleshed out before I know what it means.
If the players have done nothing to earn that information, then you're not necessarily keeping it from them per se. As a player.
Okay, as a player, to keep
Okay.
information... Okay, so there is one player at the table that you should not keep anything from, and that's the GM. Other than that, I find that it depends on... okay, so a party member keeping secrets from the rest of the party. It depends on the table. There are tables where I rule that that there are no secrets out of character. I've had to use that rule because I played with players who were a little more argumentative and
combative.
Yeah, they were a little not like they didn't have that level of trust. But on the flip side, on my Sunday game, the characters that are being played, Jen, Chris, and Bill, mesh together so well that they will occasionally step out of, like, we play on my TeamSpeak server, and we'll drag a single player out of a channel to ask a couple of questions. And Jen's character, specifically Jen, for those of you who know Jen's character box, her standard operating procedure is, I know I want the party to do X. I have information LMNOP. I will tell them L and O because it will encourage X. I will not tell them the rest of the information. That is her default operating procedure. She constantly presents the party with a piece of what she knows, never the whole picture. And to this day, there are huge plot arcs that half of the party literally does not know exist because Jen's character hasn't told it.
Right. And it could make for some really interesting roleplay too. Squeegee mentioned earlier that he likes to pull somebody aside and tell them information and then have them pass it along if they choose to, or how they choose to. Yep. Once that information's out of his hands, he doesn't then go say, no, what I actually told them is this. He just steps out and lets the players...
Oh, God, no. I love it. I love watching characters abso-fucking-lutely butcher the communication of that information. Like, holy shit.
Does anyone else know about Jack's book? Does anyone else know about that book?
The only character who knew anything about Jack's book is dead.
That's a prime example of it. I think it's actually a good storytelling tool to have secrets. You don't walk up to somebody and tell them everything about you. There are plenty of things about us that none of you guys know, and some of you have been watching us for hundreds of days.
Yep. So I think that if the table of players is that kind of group, then hell yeah, like that can be really good. Okay, so Dojel said he had a question about the collaboration. Yeah. Lay it on me, Sonny.
We like our meta questions.
I got all night.
I gotta bookmark this. This is going right on my front page.
Mm.
I'm gonna open my browser and all of a sudden there's just gonna be people.
How do I handle non-verbal or distorted communication between characters and between the players of those characters?
Ooh.
Dice. That is how I handle that. This is a perfect example of where I feel that the dice are a tool to be used in the story and the collaboration rather than something that are opposite of it.
I know enough about Pookajutsu.
Women gang. Indeed you do. So this is where I come up with a die roll for the player character to communicate in his muffled fashion and a character to understand that muffled communication. And typically, if either of them fail, I will personally tell the person who's receiving the information a mangled version of that. Or I will allow the person who's receiving decide how it is mangled.
So this is someone that is silenced or mute to begin with, or there's a language barrier, or maybe someone is preventing them from speaking.
The mage party that I run on Sundays currently has we call it the Skype call, because one of them is a master of mind. So they just erected a telepathic network.
Okay.
They did this because they ran into a situation where silence was necessary, because speaking would have fucked everything up. And so when they came across it, and they were like, all right, I'm going to tell them that stuff. I said, no, you're not. And he's like, why not? I was like, because your character's not dumb, and you're not going to talk out loud. What you are going to do is try and communicate non-verbally. And he was like, oh, no, yeah, that's what I meant. And I was like, okay, do you have any training in sign language? He was like, yes. And I turned around the player was trying to talk to him. I said, do you know sign language? And said, no. I said, okay, so this is where we roll charisma plus athletics, I guess, right? To clearly communicate what the fuck you wanted to do. And they both botched. They both botched the roll. And as a result...
So not only did that person not communicate what they wanted to communicate, the other person wouldn't have gotten it anyways.
Right, and it was mangled 7 ways from Sunday, and it was terrible. That plan did not go as, like, at all, ever. Like, they miscommunicated the worst possible way, and one of the PCs gave everything a blue cat out of the bag, thinking it was time to go when it wasn't, and it was awful. And ever since that day, they now use this telepathic, network because they are horrified about trying to talk. Shit, they got enough miscommunications over verbal shit. Like,
Wyvern, that is one, a good question for another episode, but two, a great question for Grant.
My question is, how would a player make the jump trying to be a GM for the first time? What would you suggest to the person to do in preparation for it? I can answer that pretty succinctly. 1. Use a pre-written adventure.
Yes, those are really handy.
They are the most amazing thing you've ever read. 2, do it with players you trust. Specifically, I advise doing it for somebody that's GM'd for you, where they know the point is you're trying to figure it out. 3, do it with a small group. 4, do it with a game you know how to play. Holy shit. Do not make your first foray into GMing the first time you've ever played Deadlands.
Yeah, and don't let it come into a situation where we talk about all this cooperative and all that sort of thing. But don't go into a situation like that with players that are going to guide your hand on how to run the system.
Yeah.
Have an idea of how you want to run it.
How strict do you stay to the written adventure? I don't really think about staying to a written adventure as strict. What I do is I go through and I make certain I read through that adventure 3 or 4 times. I know exactly what all of the things in the adventure are, exactly everything. If I only glance at it to remember the numbers of the stats of the monsters, but I know everything else before I run a pre-written adventure. And then the player characters walk onto the scene.
And everything goes
to shit, and you just try and make certain that you stay true to what was written, in the sense that the NPCs act consistently with what they're supposed to be like, and the environment does what it's consistently supposed to do, and that's how I stick to it. But ultimately, the pre-written adventure is a scenario for the player characters to play through, and what those characters do and how the setting reacts to what they're doing isn't part of the pre-written module. And if it is, you need to find a different one, because that's a very poorly written adventure.
Like, you're talking about like body language or the show?
Building on my question, when the dice decide, how much detail do you put in your nonverbal communication between describing every emotion and just saying the intent? When I go for, when I'm letting the dice decide something like that, I work with intent. I don't bother describing the exact motions. I ask them, first I let the dice fly, then I say, okay, you passed, what did you want the other person to know?
Right. Yeah, I've actually seen I've actually participated in some of that, because I have played character that was trying to sign to another character in the first Mage game.
Oh my god, there was also there was also a scene in
First.
it was, what did I call that game, that storyline? It was about the kids. Gods Among Us.
Gods Among Us. Yeah.
And it was a character being played by, it was one of the FC on Marlboro. I can't, the name.
Oh my fuck, what?
She played a deaf girl. Her character was a deaf high school student. Mine was not a deaf high school student. And I rolled the dice
Carrie?
for her sign language. Yeah.
Carrie?
Yeah, Carrie played a deaf girl, and I played a girl who wasn't deaf, and my character rolled and failed sign language and communicated that she wanted to find the hamburger.
The hamburger.
That was a riot. That scene was great.
So what you're saying here is, like, are you asking like from a storyteller perspective of like what information do you give? like you just pass the intent along, or you ask the person, like if the roll is successful, you ask the person trying to communicate, what's your intent, and then let them say what they're meaning to say. And then if they want to just like sit there and make like signs or do body language at each other, let them do it.
I feel like that would be like circumventing the whole point of the dice in the first place.
Yeah.
The reason I throw those dice is to decide whether or not the communication was clear and the proper information was communicated. So if I were to say, roll the dice, okay, now you can motion, it's not telling them that their character does something stupid. It's just that whatever they communicated didn't get through.
Right.
And I feel that when the dice say that somebody should do something, I don't then invite the opportunity for the players to fuck it up.
To undo it, yeah.
I'm not looking to pounce on them for having made a mistake. If the dice said you communicate, then let them communicate.
Right. Yeah, and
the story is about what the PCs do right, not what they do wrong.
I would say that this is so nowhere near the topic, but it did just kind of brush to mind. If you are going to resort to the dice for something, once you make the decision to make that roll, go with the roll.
Yep. Yep. Oh god.
I only bring this up because this is like my rule number 2, because rule number 1 is probably something much better about facilitating players or something. But no. Rule number 2.
Rule number 1 is always have pants on at the table if there are other people physically at the same table as you are. Yeah.
Rule number 2 though is if anyone, like if someone picks up the dice and says, I'm going to roll the dice for this, then they need to know they're going to get the result of those dice.
Yeah. If you aren't comfortable, and again, this is coming from an online play, which is not quite the same thing as a tabletop, but typically I operate by the same rule, where if failure is not an outcome I am willing to allow because of the story, then I don't have them roll. I just say they succeed. If success is not something that can happen because the story won't allow that,
then I don't need to roll.
Then I don't roll. I say you try it and it fails, right?
Don't ever tell the player they can't. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Like he did briefly touch on, don't say no. Like
saying finding a way to say yes to the player, even if that yes is a, I can't. This is how badass I am. I'm always so right that I never have to compromise. That's what I'm looking for. Holy shit! Thank you.
You never have to compromise. You're so good at it that you never ever have to compromise.
But finding a way to say yes to the players is a sign of a good GM. Not in the sense that like they get whatever they want, but in the sense that like they have the freedom to do.
Right. I think it's actually really cool to, instead of flat out saying no, I don't want this in my game, to saying, okay, you want this, but how you want it doesn't work. What cracked out thing are we going to come up with that gets you to this?
Yep. Like I want you to get the gist of this, but I also want you to work with me on changing it so that it works with what I want.
And you're not going to get it instantly. It's not going to be just dropped in your lap. How are you going to get it?
Yep.
Okay, give me some story now. Let's go.
Yep.
I think, okay, so I mentioned earlier, as I asking, like, what kind of role-playing games we were doing, and I'm doing Dragonstar, which is a D&D 3.5, well, 3.0-ish, 3.5 supplement that takes your D&D, puts it up in space.
Right.
It's been done before, whatever. And we actually updated the 5th ed, but Laurel was playing a lawful good paladin that might have been cursed by a lycanthrope, and managed to avoid lycanthropy, but not an alignment shift.
Right.
Man, I was going to tie this into like how, where normally these things are like, the rules say, well, you can only be within certain steps of your god, or et cetera, et cetera. And we turned this into where, like, well, we could either give her the lycanthropy, and that could be the reason she falls out of favor with the god, and let it just be the curse. Or we could sit here and actually analyze the fact that she's been hanging around all these chaotic good people anyways.
Right.
And she's been kind of slipping from her paladin duties. and she's kind of so instead of like going like flat out like, okay, here you're evil now, it's no, here you're chaotic neutral now.
Yeah.
Your old god doesn't want anything with you. But what is that you hear in your head? Well, you hear storms, you hear thunderbolts, lightning. You found a new god, and this one wants you to kick ass. And it's like it's great. Like
and like finding
nobody planned for that to go that way because she was the lawful good paladin of like paladin-y.
Yep.
And
it is very much. It really does just boil down to work with your players, and the flip side is the players need to work with the GM. It is not player versus GM. Anybody who's played for 5 seconds will tell you that because the game is about the PCs coming out on top, killing the wizard, rescuing the damsel, whatever, right? But that's not why it's not player versus GM. You know when it's not player versus GM? It's not player versus GM because the point of the game isn't trying to get away with the highest stats the GM will let you have. It's not player versus GM because you're looking for the loophole the GM didn't catch. Like, that's not the point of the narrative playstyle in this.
A role-playing game is, a tabletop RPG isn't a game where there's one clear winner. And there's so many people that do try to play it that way. But it's never a sheet competition or a stat competition or even, I can tell the best story competition.
Right.
That's why it should never be, like, player versus...
I have to say there are exceptions, as there are always exceptions. I have played some pretty interesting PvP games.
Right, there are PvP, yeah.
But that was the point. That was the point. It was a deviation from the norm.
So don't tell the player they can't. That's World of Darkness rule number 1. World of Darkness rule number 2 is literally anything can happen.
You're fucked. That's World.
And most of it will fuck you.
Just like science, especially science. Science specifically will fuck you.
Will fuck you in the ear.
That's all I got there. Yeah.
That's a really disturbing picture.
Ear fucking? Scientific ear fucking? Really? That disturbs you? You've known me for how long?
That's like we've been through a whole bunch of shit, and scientific ear fucking was my line.
Shit, son.
Crossed my line.
Shit.
By the way, this is not a family friendly podcast.
It's got me in it.
It's got me in it.
So while we're waiting for somebody else to come up with something, question they want to ask, unless nobody has any more questions, the website, which I will turn back on here. Look at this, ready? Bing.
Nerd-community.com.
Bing, 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 bing.
Is he like turning it on and off? Is like an old blink tag?
Bing, bing.
Oh my god, he's switching the Bing, guys.
That right now, what you see there is the forums. There will be in the future, as I have time to work on it. There will also be articles. I know Wanton Nerd and myself are both writing columns. I've got a couple of like community games that I'm going to be running and doing on the forums as well. And there's going to be a website, and one of the purposes of this website is going to be like a central hub for all of the nerd community content creators, such as myself and the role-playing games you see on this channel. Suddenly Ducks does a lot of role-playing on their channel, and T-Man at C-Town also does some Pathfinder stuff on his channel, and all of those shows are uploaded to YouTube, right? So if you miss a show, the YouTube channel it'll go up to a YouTube channel, and we're gonna put you're gonna be able to stay caught up with all these games because there's gonna be one central website for all of the nerd community stuff. That is what we are building towards. But for now, it starts with the forum because the most important piece of the nerd community is you guys.
No, it's actually just me. Sorry.
But you're just the biggest piece.
Oh, okay. I'm the largest piece, and then everybody just
yeah, it would just like gravitate around you, maybe establish an orbit, right?
Mm-hmm. Pizza orbit.
God, I am so fucking hungry. Like, you have no idea.
Might have to wrap this up so you can get some pizza.
Seriously. Actually, I'm considering getting a pizza. I'm not gonna lie. Actually, you know what? While we are talking in this very moment,
he's gonna order a pizza.
I'm gonna fucking order me some food.
Wyvern's like, yay, I'm important.
Yay!
I'm actually really excited for these forums and the community, of course.
I am super pumped.
This is going to be something I can babble about a lot.
I am looking forward to writing again. I am looking forward to having a place where I can post writing where people will read it. Like I know a lot of people they do a lot of their writing and their role playing and stuff. They don't want don't look at it, don't read it. You know, I wrote it for me. I don't write for me. I don't. No. I don't play for me. I like having people going, oh, that was cool, or you know, like reading it and enjoying it, which is one of the reasons that I decided I wanted to start streaming my role playing in the first place. Because I love sharing it with you guys. So I am super excited for the chance to play with folks in a way that doesn't require me to dedicate 4 hours of my week in a singular chunk.
Now imagine, like, as much as he talked here, imagine him without having to have a camera in front of him and the freedom to just keep writing as much as he wants to.
Yep.
Oh,
I actually have a couple of novellas I'm looking forward to publishing soon. You know, I've had a couple of people say they wanted to edit for me. Like, I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna sell books.
But I'm excited to see like what kind of games people are interested in, and they have questions about what they want to play. And I want to see some kind of like play-by-post stuff getting kicked up. I want to read your stuff. I want to voyeur.
Ooh, baby.
Ooh, baby.
I am also interested to see a lot of like there are a lot of folks who come in from like we've had a couple of people that showed up from Suddenly Ducks stream that have started to filter around, and I know Serranus for one is somebody from Pluto Fairy's stream. Like Pluto Fairy's stream is just Final Fantasy stream. It's not even a role playing stream, but she's there they are there every fucking week on Saturday for Darkness Rising. And it's just not that like there's a whole bunch of people now, and I'm like, oh my god, I get to have like everybody here in constant communication on these forums.
Yeah,
like,
and then
actually
you can talk to Roboven about role playing something that's drunk. Or
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. You could talk to Wyvern King about the role playing the Weeb King and his court.
Yeah, and like doing some fucking awesome stuff. Like I know a lot of us here are Final Fantasy players. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is kicking up some Eorzean RP.
He came from Ren through Pook, so I'm even further away. Well, hey, maybe we can get some Yordles over there on the boards too.
Hey.
Yeah,
legit. Like this website and this whole nerd community is about you guys, and the more of you guys there are, the better. So please, for the love of God, if you want this to work, and you want more people to play with, and you want more people to show up and have a bigger, better community with a bigger, better show and a bigger, better site. Bring your friends. And you like role playing is something you do with friends, right? Most of the people in this chat right now are from different gaming groups.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
like
Dojel doesn't even play Final Fantasy.
Dojel doesn't even play Final Fantasy, but I know like Pook, you've got friends that you play with.
Yes.
I've got friends that I play with that aren't here right now. And like bringing them in here to play with each other and us is how this whole thing works. I just got myself a steak and cheese.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, fuck you.
Fuck you.
I have some garlic parmesan wings.
What's up, A-Card X?
Welcome, A-Card.
I cannot verify my awesomeness nor my intelligence, but I can, I'm a dude.
Maybe?
Oh, man. If there is Final Fantasy XIV Nerd RP on Behemoth, I'm gonna reuse my alt way more often, says Jim Link.
Oh, actually, like in-game RP?
I've been doing it on the forums.
You could organize some of that too. I mean, that would
like organizing events and stuff.
Yeah, that's not my thing, but I know some people that have that as their thing.
Yeah, like if you guys want to set that up, like there's an LFG forum for exactly that kind of thing. Hey, I want to play this on Behemoth. Does anybody want to play with me on Behemoth
that want to play with my Aura? She's got scales.
It's again
in-game
like
RP is a thing.
In-game RP
is a big thing.
It's not even my thing, but it is a big thing. I know a lot of people who get really serious about it.
You're in a guild in Guild Wars 2 that is basically the police force. All right, have a good one, Optical. Man, Shit. What was I gonna say? There's this game I really want to play called Mice and Mystics. It's a RPG in a box kind of tabletop board game kind of thing. And it's like $60, but I really kind of want it. And what I like about it is it's a number of various, like, it's a little adventure game where you play the heroes of this kingdom that were turned into mice by an evil sorceress, whatever, and you navigate around the board as little mice, dealing with spiders and other rats and stuff as your enemies.
Yeah.
But it's not one set board. It's actually a number of tiles that you switch in or out, based on which chapter of the story you're in. It actually comes with a 13 chapter book.
Nice.
And you play through each chapter.
Right.
And the chapter itself probably takes about 45 to 60 minutes. So you're not going to get through them all in one playthrough. And you might even die before you make it to the other chapter. So the next time you play, back to chapter 1.
That actually brings up a couple things I wanted to talk about. I know Dojo just mentioned Deadlands. Deadlands is the thing I cannot ever have enough Deadlands. Ever. I'm gonna be doing some Deadlands stuff on the forums. I'm also, what would the audience think would make a great topic for a nerd podcast?
Ooh, yes.
Let's hear what you guys want to hear about Pook and I, and potentially even guest hosts. It is my goal to have a different guest host each broadcast, if at all possible.
We would like some guest hosts.
And I have a couple people that have already said they wanted to show up. They're just waiting for a when. But what do you guys want to hear us talk about?
Or who? Or how?
Or who? Or how? Or why? Or when?
What kind of role-playing games interest you? Like, in what environments and what?
Yeah, like, do you guys want to hear, like, advice about being a better player in a particular kind of game, or being a better GM, or, like, handling problem players, or do you guys want to hear, like, do you guys want a war stories podcast where we just, like, fucking talk about the shit that's happened at our tables, or
the upcoming Star Wars movie?
To be fair, it is a nerd relevant topic.
It really is. Is there, like, do you want to hear about MMORPGs and how they're RPGs or not? Do you want to hear about tabletop? Do you want to hear about various video games? Do you want to see one-shots?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I'm going to be doing. I'm still working on it, Pook. I'm working on the procedurally generated dungeon that will function with Microlight 20. Nice. So we can just go until it's time to stop and see who gets the most gold at the end.
Would you like to see maybe us just, like, save up money for copies of Tabletop Simulator and one day kick around on a board?
Oh, that's one vote for GMing. RP etiquette.
Gym topic, yeah. RP etiquette. RP etiquette could be a huge.
Do you want to hit some controversial topics, Pook? Because I've got some of those lying around.
Working with and introducing new players, tipster. That's great. Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Start a Kickstarter.
I will give you internet hugs if you give me money.
Epic Spell Wars. That would be kind of awesome. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And or do you want us to do, like, reviews of games? Do you, like, have no idea what the World of Darkness is and want to hear more of an informative, what the fuck is the World of Darkness, or what the fuck is Dungeons and Dragons?
Or what the fuck is Deadlands, or what the fuck is Savage Worlds, or what the fuck is Fate, etc. Yeah, totally.
What the fuck is Dark Heresy? What the fuck is Dark Heresy?
Dark Heresy is Warhammer 40k. You play the Inquisition.
Advice for introvert players. There's another good one.
Yeah.
I think these would be great things. Talk about choice chamber.
Choice chamber.
You two want to talk about wargaming?
I've done some. It's not really my thing, but I've done it.
Yeah. When players with the dice choose option D, and aka I really didn't expect that. Yeah, we can definitely talk about the derailing
Yeah, derailing is a big one.
Um, we could talk about individual, like if there's a tabletop or role playing game that you guys have seen and go, what do you guys think of this? It's
Yep.
something we can definitely look into too. Like that's I'd like to hear thoughts on various degrees of tabletops, like what's good for beginners, novices. Oh,
Oh yeah, no, like getting into it, like making it easy, making it difficult, talking about the difference between a beer and pretzels kick down the door game to like a serious, immersive, heavy duty, hardcore drama.
Darth and Droid.
I'm not familiar with Darth and Droid. Is Darth and Droid the webcomic about the tabletop role playing game where the plot and the story the GM is running is Star Wars? Because that's a real webcomic. Bill is always talking about it. I haven't read it yet, and it sounds fucking hilarious.
Maybe for the hell is like like a series of videos on my YouTube channel.
All right, no, Roman's got a solid, and that's getting seconded. I might have to fucking jot some of these down. Like, these are really good.
It's the plot of Star Wars as a D&D campaign.
Yeah, and basically, it's like the players aren't familiar with Star Wars. Like in the players' universe, Star Wars is the thing, and Star Wars is instead the GM's campaign that he's running. And
that would be something that works for me because I barely know.
That webcomic is fucking hilarious. It is so fucking funny.
When is a character imbalanced or OP?
Ooh.
Oh, me and Grant have actually had drag down,
knockdown. Like we got mad about that topic. That's a good one. Yeah.
That is definitely a topic we can discuss.
Yep. And hopefully be friends when we're done.
Yeah, Jim Link, that's what I was thinking. Like, we can also do, like, occasionally just showcase a game.
Yeah, no, that's actually something I had planned, was like, picking a game and like, just a single encounter or scenario, because shit, we know that takes 2 or 3 hours to work through, right?
Yeah, not an entire episode, but when your players go against the system and you don't know how to solve it. Yeah.
You know what I'm definitely seeing a theme develop here, like when the players go against the system or when the story goes off the rails, when shit does not go as planned. How do you do that? All that improvisational and educative stuff.
How do you beat a motherfucker with another motherfucker?
You know what's funny is that I've actually had that happen. I was actually the player when that happened. I was playing Aubrey as a Vampire of the Requiem vampire during World War II. And he grabbed a Nazi. And he killed Nazis
with
Nazis. It was great. we used like the ST rule that it was fine because I had improvised weapon fighting style and I had oversized weapon fighting style, and we ruled that a Nazi was in fact an improvised oversized weapon.
Amazing how that works,
isn't it?
It
was great.
Those are all actually really fantastic ideas.
Yeah, no,
I'm loving this. I'm loving this right now. After you guys, this is it's great.
No, I'm all about this. I'm all about that. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I'm actually really excited to see there are people who want to hear more of us fucking talking out our ass about being nerds.
What the fuck is a puka? How to deal with players' secret agendas and actions. Kill them.
Kill them. Yeah, no, like that's a whole can of worms right there. Like how to deal. Is the player keeping their agenda secret from you?
Oh God. No. The players that, oh my God.
I deal with that all the time on a regular basis.
My character has amnesia. Okay. But I'm still the storyteller. You still have to tell me what, no, my character doesn't know. They have no, but you as a player should know. But my character has amnesia. No.
You know what my response to that is? I had a player who insistently, like, to the point of a feisty argument, was insistent on amnesia as a backstory because they didn't want a backstory. I said, okay, I'll let you do this under one condition. And they were like, what? I get to decide your character's backstory. They never let me do that again.
Yeah.
Never.
That's some dirty stuff right there. Hey, Smoggin.
What's up, Smoggin Dragon? What's going on, man?
I'm surprised I have somewhat. Okay. I'm going through that right now as a player with another player. I understand players keeping it from each other, but like...
Yeah, players keeping secrets from each other is not a big deal as long as people are...
How do you deal with, like, we could really talk about metagaming and OOC knowledge, or
you know what? That's a great topic on the whole.
Yeah.
Like, that branches off into so much different, that's really broad and really robust.
really, really, really girthy. I mean,
Girthy.
girthy. No passing to the GM under the table. Ways to avoid players metagaming that.
Yep.
Okay. It really helps when you're actually not at a physical table, because then you could just send somebody a Skype message and nobody else knows that you've actually sent a Skype message unless the GM is like, oh, I'm looking at your Skype message.
For example, this whole time, Pook and I have been cybering. The look on your face, like, you were like, yeah, I'm reading the what? Like...
I'm like, wait, did you confuse me with somebody else because I'm missing out on all the cybering? Fuck! That ain't right. Talk about full armed characters in the start, but then again they lose their powers. Oh, like a you come in prologue. As the
Yeah, the prologue.
Like you come in as the ultimate team, right?
Yep.
And then you just completely just
and then you get styled upon.
Is it worth discussing when a character should really be able to do something without fucking up 5% of the time? Oh my god. Dice disparity. Oh my god, system.
You are talking to a guy who is who took that concept, the botch and the crit, and wound up learning learning math I have no business like teaching myself a large chunk of statistics 101. Yeah. And the math and stuff, because oh my god, I can't tell you.
It's just like, there's some people that get really, really caught up in that. Because the World of Darkness, the old World of Darkness, has a difficulty curve that actually says that the more dice you throw in the pool, the worse you're going to do.
Yep. Yeah, it like the math is dumb. And so like on a D20 you got a 5% chance to roll a 1 and botch, right? Here's my rule of thumb. If you're good enough to do something without that 1% chance to fail, without the 5% chance to fail,
don't roll.
Fucking roll.
Don't roll. There's a difference between do it passingly and doing it spectacularly. And if you want to fucking like do your like 14 ninja flips before you do it, before you pick the lock, then roll some dice because you're showing off.
But there's a chance that you would fail that because you've made it complex for yourself.
Yeah. Botch of the Crit sounds like the name of a jazz group.
He rolled a 1.
Oh yeah, I kind of like that idea, Zordius, where you're like, okay, here's where you could end up, but now it's taken from you. Get back there.
Yep.
And you can use that to set like there could be a whole power gaming episode.
Campaign, yeah, like a game about so we got an episode about power gaming. We got an episode about metagaming. I've got one for you, Pook, that's sure to like kick the hornet's nest up and down and throw it in your face 7 ways from Sundays. Ready?
Uh-huh.
Sex and gaming.
Oh. Don't roll on the pregnancy chart. Don't do it. Don't roll on the pregnancy chart. Oh. Wow. Yeah, let's actually save that for that episode because
yeah, no, like that's a whole episode.
Because that's a thing. Social combat.
Ooh, social role play.
Yeah, Dojo, I was definitely Craig-asming over here. I was like, no, yeah, no, yeah, but there's places where it has a place. Sex can move the story forward.
Yep.
Sex can be a very useful tool in storytelling. But role-playing for the explicit purpose of sex is a whole can of worms.
Yeah, no, I just mean like in general, like that would be one of the things. Role playing for sex or including sex in your stories or how to address those topics.
Yeah. Roll a 1 and botch the finish. Oh. Callow, hold on now. Wrong hole.
Oh, Jesus. Hole. Oh, that episode's gonna be a riot.
Oh God,
that was gonna be a fucking riot.
That's gonna be an After Dark episode, guys.
Yep, pretty much. All right, so you know what? It's about that time. All right, and I'm thinking who we gonna call?
Do you wanna
who
say
you call?
who we are?
Let's see. Okay, so, if you guys are, how did you end up in my nose? Alright.
That should be the raid message.
How did you end up in my nose? Alright, so here's what we're gonna do, alright? I need your guys' help, alright? I'm researching who we're gonna bomb. We're gonna raid somebody, alright? I'm gonna spam a link in chat, and you guys are gonna follow that link, and then I'm gonna give you a message to spam. While we're doing about that, Pookajutsu is gonna do his call out, like, you know, you could find. Go, this is your plug yourself.
Hi, I'm Pookajutsu. You can often find me at twitch.tv/Pookajutsu, where I do daily Final Fantasy XIV streams each and every morning. 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, not a single day off. You can also find me on social media at Pookajutsu. That's also on Twitter and to Facebook and to YouTube and the Instagram and all those things if you really want to go looking for me. If it's something on the internet named Pookajutsu, it's probably me.
Welcome
or
back,
somebody
dude.
that looks like me. Or my camera might have died at some point and I'm...
No, it was, don't worry about it, I fixed it.
Okay.
There's some issues, alright?
Feel free to come check me and the ponies out. We'd love to have you. We often also play other games. Yeah, and we talk about butts.
We do talk about a lot of butts on your channel, right? And I am EvilSqueegee. If this is your first time swinging by, I stream in the morning, EST, weekdays, Monday through Thursday. We do Final Fantasy XIV in the mornings. We do D&D on Fridays, and we do some horror role playing on Saturdays at 4 p.m. And we do like whatever the fuck we want on Saturdays. You can look forward to more of these nerd podcasts on Monday evenings at 4 p.m. EST. We're gonna go with a bi-weekly schedule to start with, so the next podcast won't be next Monday, but the Monday after that. All right. Until then, I'm gonna spam a link right now.